Okay, we're ready? Okay, good afternoon. This is the Board of Standards and Appeals review session for September 15, 2020, 2 p.m. session. There is no public testimony during this review session. The first item for discussion is 2019-74BZ 11251 Northern Boulevard, Queens. Can't hear you.
Use the phone like yesterday.
Shampa, do you want Shampa to?
Mute.
Yeah, you go. There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know why it muted. Okay.
I've already called the case, Marjorie.
But we're not on you. Oh, we are on YouTube. Okay. Can you say it again?
It's 2019-74BZ 112-51 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Okay. Okay. At long last, can you hear me? Yes, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. At long last, there is a signed and sealed survey showing curb levels in NAVD 88 and a letter from a surveyor indicating the conversion between NAVD 88 and above mean sea level. The curb elevations on the drawings conform to the dimensions shown on the revised survey. And when I say the curb elevations, I'm really talking about the plan that establishes what the average curb level is. However, I think that all of the elevations in the sections and building elevations are incorrect with respect to the two datum. It shows NAVD 88 at 0.19 less than mean sea level, when the opposite is the case according to the survey and the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration data source for Willets Point Station, which is what this surveyor is using. NAVD 88 is 0.19 higher than mean sea level. So unless I'm wrong about that, the drawings have to be carefully corrected throughout. That's why I always ask for a surveyor to do this, because I know it's complicated and architects often make mistakes on this. On the other hand, the drawings are much clearer than they were before and show the R6 sky exposure plane and setback requirements and as of right height under the LaGuardia proximity zoning of 61-20. A set of bubble drawings should have been provided to show the changes made. I want to remind our project managers that they should not be accepting submissions without bubble drawings showing changes. And applicants, all applicants listening and these applicants should not be making submissions without them. I didn't see a Port Authority letter in the file. If it's there, please point it out to me. I do appreciate the argument made by applicant about the history of this special permit and the applicability of 7303 consideration to it. And while I'm certain that 7303 protections apply to all BSA special permits as explicitly articulated in section 73-61, I think the principal reason that some board members are looking at the height in this case, rather than deferring entirely to the FAA approval, is that unlike all of the other 7366 approvals cited in the recent submission, this proposal is for a 332-foot above grade level building, over 100 feet taller than the tallest of the other buildings for which special permits were granted, and the resolutions for which were provided by the applicant. I'm just going to read those heights: 226, 201, 170, 159, 146, 243, 186, all those numbers like that. There are more. And in an area And this is also being proposed in an area where no other building is anywhere near as tall as the proposed. That's why I think that that some board members are looking at the applicability of 7303 in this case. And the recommendation that we gave at the last hearings to look at a shorter, differently configured building was in the interest of bringing the height down to something more in line with those prior approvals, not to look at an as of right version, which is kind of an exaggeration on what we had discussed. However, the community outreach submission that was provided by applicant indicates that there has been much more of it than we realized. In other words, they've really been active with the community, even if the community that they outreach to was opposed to it, that part of the community was opposed to it. And it's more than we realized based on previous testimony, and that there were also many letters of community support for it that were newly submitted, mostly interested in the job opportunities the project will bring. So it seems like it's not 100% that the community is opposed to it by any means, it looks like. Those are my comments. I'm still struggling about whether, so for instance, one of the arguments for why the 7303 kind of arguably isn't, I don't know to say the word relevant, but wouldn't be sort of triggered in a certain way here, is because that the City Planning Commission, when it was assigning designations for environmental review, assigned this one, the 7366, a type 2 action, because as it stated, the board isn't being asked to look at anything that hasn't already been looked at through environmental impact statements by the City Planning Commission. So the City Planning Commission may never have anticipated a building being this tall under the underlying zoning, because this is a very large site, so there's a lot of floor area. But at the same time, it's a sky exposure plane, height factor, alternate setback district, and by definition, those buildings can be as tall as the floor area you can buy. So, Commissioner Shanda or Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. I commend the applicant for providing a very detailed historic analysis of the special permit, and the board's focused role and specific to this special permit. What I found interesting was the consistency in the board's resolution for 7366 since the 1960s. It's quite impressive. And the more recent 2014 rulemaking of the type 2, which you just mentioned, Madam Chair, designation action also was very informative and affirmed the focus and the limited scope of Section 7366. So the type 2 rulemaking made one thing clear, that even though Section 6100 imposes a height restriction of buildings and the special permit allows waiver of height regulations around airport, it, I quote, does not allow buildings or structure height to exceed the heights that would be otherwise permitted as of right in the zoning district, which in this case would be permitted in an R6 C24 commercial over C24 district. So BSA's review is related exclusive to the safety concerns that may arise from modifying the height restrictions in areas around the airport. And since the special permit allows BSA to waive the height restrictions that are imposed only for reasons relating to flight safety, these determinations are made solely in consultation with FAA and do not otherwise require consideration of factors relating to land use issue. This I'm quoting from the type 2 designation rulemaking. While I agree with the applicant with the role of 73-01A is to ensure compliance with the underlying regulations, the applicant has also clearly indicated that an as-of-right development with a height limit of 128 above ground level will have a similar impact to the neighborhood as the proposed, and primarily it would have more impact along 112th Street. or 12th place actually, as the northeast frontage is hemmed by highways and the southern frontage fronts on Northern Boulevard, which is over 100 feet wide at this location. The building, by placing it whether it's at this lot line or it's or being set back, would have not that much of a difference of an impact. Actually, it will have a positive as to what the applicant is proposing. And however, what's being proposed along 112th place with a height limit of 128 or even an as-of-right development would still have an impact on 112th place. And what the applicant is proposing is for setting back the bulk as much from 112th place as much as possible and moving it closer to where there is a wider street and there's a lot larger distance. So I think even though this exercise, I don't believe should be required of cases, especially for 7366, but I'm glad the applicant has provided it, and it makes it very clear to me that what the applicant has proposed, it results in a better site plan and a better building, and will have less of an impact of light and air and other issues on the abutting buildings and the street blocks. I have no additional comments on the proposed project, and I believe it meets the findings. So that's kind of where I stand. And there was one question that was the applicant has raised, and I don't know if we want to discuss it, and that has to do with the way the applicant had asked about the giving a conditional approval tied to the findings. Given that not all the violations can be addressed, I would be okay, given that we're in a very unpredictable situation and we do not know when these hearings are going to resume and how frequently they're going to resume and what conditions. So I would be more okay with the idea of having a conditional approval tied to the TCO prior to the grant of a TCO and not a CO.
Why a TCO as opposed to, say, a permit? You're talking about the elimination of the violations, right?
Yeah, I think the building may be ready for construction, but I don't know whether by that time the city would have normalized enough for all of the hearings and other things to get resolved.
You can't get a construction permit without clearing up your violations. They won't issue one.
Okay, so then it's a building permit.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the standard condition, then that's what will be applied.
Not sure. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown?
The Port Authority letter is in the initial submission.
Mm-hmm.
And it signs off to the heights that they were talking about, stating that if there's any deviation from those heights, they need to re-review.
Okay.
And I have no additional comments on this case.
Thanks. Okay. Commissioner Sheta?
Thank you, Chair. I went through the submission, and I believe that reason for what we asked the applicant to provide last hearing was to make sure that when we grant a special permit like this, according to the zoning resolution, that like the applicant will benefit from the special permit, we need the community to benefit as well. It's kind of like a mutual benefiting, that applicants get something and the community gets something. And when I went through the submission this time, I wasn't able to understand exactly what is the community is getting here. The applicant is trying to imply that whether the building is as of right or the proposed, the impact on the community would be the same. I respectively disagree. I don't believe that the as of right building impact is going to be same as the proposed one. The proposed building is more than twice high. It's going to block views. It's going to affect light and air. So I believe there is some impact here. And when the applicant tried to look at the feasibility of like an alternative. They looked at an as of right. And I'm not sure, would it be something in between? Like instead of the as of right height, nor the proposed one? Can we go something in between? And if the answer is yes, what would that be? What would be like desirable to the applicant to go with? So we can make the community and applicant both happy. The applicant gets something and community gets something. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, I see Commissioner, Vice Chair Shanda and Commissioner Otley Brown's hands up. Can we wait until we hear from Commissioner Shavetta and then come back? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think that we have to focus in on exactly what this permit is about and why there is a height restriction. And while I do believe that 7303 is relevant and is certainly within our power to review in light of that, I think that it's pretty clear that they have reached out to the community. They have taken these steps. They have, this is a very different picture than the one that we were first believed. I think I myself am satisfied with this application. And I guess for the record, I'll just clarify that this is an as of right, but for the height restriction, which is in place because of it being a certain distance from an airport. Otherwise, we would, there wouldn't be anything before us. The only thing that we're supposed to look at outside of, and again, I say this with keeping in mind 7303, we're supposed to look at whether or not this meets the safety protocols that the FAA have had been. So that's all I have on that. But I am satisfied with this application.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, Commissioner Vice Chair Shanda and then Commissioner Otley Brown.
I just want to say that, when this area was recently rezoned, it was rezoned about, I think, 4 years back, and it was rezoned twice. Each time the area was rezoned, this particular block was this one and the block right next to it, which is the Tower in the Park neighborhood. Those two were left as is. They were left as R6, partly because they were super blocks, partly because of the way they were hemmed in by all the mass network of all the highways and byways. And because this site was at an irregular location, it's an irregular site with more of all the highways hemmed in. They left it as R6 because an as of right development would not have a contextual building envelope, which they could have easily rezoned. Wouldn't have resulted in a better building design and to allow for that flexibility. This was not something the City Planning Commission left out by mistake. This Elmhurst Corona area was rezoned twice. Mm-hmm. So there has been thought given in by the City Planning Commission in leaving the zoning as is, and that it's very close to LaGuardia, so it's in the flight path. So the fact that the as of right development could allow a taller building but for the fact that it's in the LaGuardia airport was very much in their mind. I would strongly think so, because I know when we would be analyzing this site as a city planner, when we did that. So I don't think this was left out by mistake.
Okay, thank you. You said that they considered the current zoning, the height factor zoning, to allow for a better building design than the quality.
This would be mine because of the way especially the northeastern front, that triangular portion, it is hemmed in by all the highways. So to have a building to be moved away from, if you think of it, if the building has to move away from 112th Street, it can only move closer towards Astoria Boulevard, and it can move closer towards Northern Boulevard. But it results in a building that is very close to highly noxious fume, high amount of noise levels and other things. So and it's not the design that any developer will choose for. So this is to allow for a building to give you the flexibility of in terms of program, in terms of the built form, and in front of something that is feasible and livable.
Mhm.
Those are the criteria. So I think they applied.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown?
So to me, 7366 is a very straightforward permit that really only
Uh-oh, you just froze.
requires that we oversee, as well as the Port Authority, not that we get involved in brokering deals for the community. And so I don't think that we should be getting into, well, if they're getting something from us, we need to get something from them, because they're really not getting something from us. Zoning gives them that right to go that high. That is as of right. So they're really not getting that from us. They're just getting us coordinating the sign-offs from the FAA and the Port Authority. That's all they're getting. So this isn't like a variance where you could say we're giving them a waiver of the zoning resolution, so we want to extract conditions from them. This is not that kind of a special permit, and I personally don't feel comfortable brokering a deal for the community, especially when this applicant has spent much time at the table with the community brokering a deal already.
Mhm. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay.
I agree with Commissioner Otley Brown on that
Mhm.
completely.
Okay. Thank you. All right, any other comments? Okay, we can move on.
New cases, 1967 BZ, 2781 Coyle Street, Brooklyn.
Okay. Sorry, just a second. Okay, we have proof of service of the initial application to officials and have proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. The community board motion to approve failed 23-11. I maybe Daryl could read let's see if, oh, maybe I have it. There wasn't really an explanation for the denial given. And I asked Daryl Ruffin to reach out to the community board, who sent him an email. And I think it was something about how skinny the building was, something like that they thought it was absurd. I think that's what the comment was. And correct me if I'm wrong, Daryl. We have one letter of objection citing parking and density concerns. And though I see the community board's objection, this tiny triangular site, I have to say, is a poster child for a 7221 variance, where setback regulations render the site effectively unbuildable. The so-called area study is very incomplete and confusing, however. It doesn't indicate what it is demonstrating or claims to be demonstrating. And there is an unlabeled photograph showing parking in a lot adjacent to a building, and I don't know where that is. So I'm not really sure what that was supposed to be doing. And it looks like nobody looked at it before they hit the send button. I think there are also errors on the zoning analysis on the as of right A001. The as of right proposed floor area is shown as being both 2,459 square feet and 1,005.4 square feet, the latter of which is probably the correct one. And yeah, Daryl, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Okay, I received the email from District Manager Laura Singer. Her response was, it's a small swath of land, triangular in shape, that abuts the adjacent building's parking lot. The post-construction was of a 4-story walk-up, which they believe lessened the value of the property in the area.
Okay. Didn't they say something about it was laughable? They made
One of the guest speakers,
okay.
former councilman, said it was one of the most ridiculous BSA requests ever.
Okay. They don't spend enough time here. It comes nowhere close to that. All right, thank you, Darrell. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Okay, so I wanted to, okay, I'll just continue. Okay, so there's an error in the floor area. Also, I don't believe there are rear yard requirements on this corner lot, so that's a mistake. The as of right FAR is indicated on the drawings as 1.65, and the proposed FAR at 1.35 exceeds the standard allowable in an R5. The 1.65 applies to predominantly built up areas under section 23-143. And the applicant must demonstrate that the site meets the 1210 definition for predominantly built up area. And if yes, that the project otherwise complies with the applicable regulations listed in section 1210 for predominantly built up areas. And if you look at the DOB objection sheet, which is their actual plan examination objection sheet with all of the objections, that requires this information as well. So we need that. The floor plan, and by the way, we don't analyze whether it's a predominantly built up area. We depend on DOB to determine that it is. So I would direct the applicant to get that sign off from DOB if they think they're in a predominantly built up area and they go through the test and it still turns out that they think it is one. It's a very confusing test. The floor plans, both as of right and proposed, must include a floor area chart for each floor. A waiver of the minimum lot area requirements is requested. However, unless this lot was created or not owned separately from other lots after 1961, development of up to two-family dwelling is permitted as of right under section 23-33, so that developing a two-family would be the minimum variance, and this is a proposed three-family. So the D finding was not fully addressed. We need proof that the shape of the lot was not created by a predecessor in title after 1961 and was also not held in common ownership since that time. I saw on some document that I was looking at on this site that there was mention of the creation of this lot by the cut through of the roadway. So this may have been one of those remnants created by the roadway, in which event that would establish the hardship, assuming that the zoning lot was not subdivided to leave over this little piece. Also, we need DOB sign off that the project complies with floodplain regulations since the site is located in an AE11 zone with grade at 9.21 feet at NAVD 88. We don't review compliance and we expect the applicant to get a CCD1 indicating compliance with it because it's outside of our wheelhouse. The DOB objection sheet includes non-compliance with curb cut and parking locations of section 25-631B, 621B, and 0 lot line of section 22. I'd like to know what the resolution is on that, or are they still needing a waiver from us on that? Because we don't have that in the objection that was given to us, or a request for a waiver from either any of those things or a discussion of those things. Also, as a three-family, this is a multiple dwelling and has to comply with the multiple dwelling law. And I also don't see any accessibility to any unit in the building. Doesn't it need a lula to at least get to the first floor? And this is a 6-story walk-up with 3 duplexes. Is that really a desirable development? I'm questioning, wouldn't 2 triplexes work better in terms of this long, narrow thing? The proposed building is 2 times the allowable height at 62 feet above grade. So we need to be sure that it is in keeping with neighborhood character. The site is adjacent to 2 long 6-story buildings, but no site study showing heights of nearby buildings was provided. So it wouldn't take very much to do this area study, but we shouldn't be doing it for the applicant. The applicant has to show us that the height of the building is in context with the neighborhood. We also need all elevations, so all 4 sides, or 3 sides really, because one side I think is adjacent to a building. I now forget. Anyway, we need all the side elevations and the materials indicated. And my mantra is no exterior insulation foam material permitted. And those were my comments. Vice Chair Shanda?
So yes, thank you for pointing out those corrections in the on the zoning charts. With regards to this site, I agree that this site is narrow and is unique, and a variance would be warranted. It's a question of what kind of variance. Looking at what the applicant is proposing, this is so strange. Okay, anyway, all my comments somehow or the other just got garbled. So I have to think of what I had said.
If they got garbled, what I'd suggest is if you saved your last, then close and reopen and turn off Word and reopen it.
No, I know the main one for me is that the applicant is proposing a waiver of the front yard requirement, height and setback, and lot area requirement. So when I look at the neighborhood context, most of the buildings here are apartment buildings along that street frontage. These are apartment buildings that are almost built to the lot line, maybe set back 5 feet from the property line. So I think the applicant needs to provide an alternate. I don't think this duplex 4-unit apartment.
No, it's a 3-unit apartment.
Right, duplex 3-unit apartment makes sense because there's so much of space is being taken away through circulation, interior and one that connects the entire building. I think it would make more sense for them to seek a waiver. I mean, they're already requesting a front yard waiver. So maybe increase the reduce the front yard depth that is currently proposed to be 10 feet, both on shore and on coil. So instead of that, maybe widen the footprint of the building and provide a narrower front yard, both along Shore Parkway and along Coyle Street. Especially the Coyle Street can be as wide as 5 feet, because it would be pretty much consistent with what the other buildings are. This would widen the building footprint and therefore may not require a duplex kind of a setup. You could have 1 unit per floor.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore reduce the height and setback requirement.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like the applicant to consider that alternative. And I agree with you all the other comments with regards to the area analysis not being done properly. The self-created hardship has not been proven thoroughly. And as I said, this is not the minimum.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Holly Brown?
That we need to just have the
Uh-oh, you're frozen.
R6 infill analysis signed off by DOB, and also that we need proof that the lot is in the same configuration and separate ownership pre-61 and now.
Mm-hmm.
No other comments, though.
Okay. Commissioner Sheta?
Thank you, Chair. I just, first of all, I want to mention that I did visit the site and I saw a for sale sign on site. This is number one. Regarding the flood resistance design, like the chair mentioned, the site is in flood zone and there is nothing even in the statement of facts regarding a flood resisting design. No financials. I understand maybe they are looking at this like it's a small project. However, you cannot tell whether the proposed is the lesser variance. Nothing in the statement of facts other than one single sentence that says that the extent of the variance requested is not greater than necessary. That's all. So we can't tell whether what they are proposing is the lesser variance or the least variance they need for relief. I agree that the shape of the site is presenting hardship, and I just want to say that when there is an issue with the shape, we say there is an issue with the shape. On other sides, I believe we got two sides probably for the same applicant where we said we don't believe that the shape is presenting hardship for the architect here. In this case, I believe it is, but I'm not sure about the self-created hardship. Yes, there is a hardship, but it could be self-created. They have to prove that it's not. And that's all. Thank you.
I think we lost the chair.
Oh.
No.
Sorry, I was thrown out again.
So I'll carry on.
Yeah,
Chair.
yeah. Can you maybe start from,
Yeah, I didn't say much.
okay.
I'm going to be brief. Most of my comments are going to be repetitive. I think we all agree that the site does seem unique, and short of it not being something that's self-created, I think that they certainly have a unique site and a hardship due to it. I would love to know a little bit more from the community what their objection is. The late Lou Fedler would probably have more to say than just it looks like a silly design on such a narrow lot. That being said, I do believe that I'm not convinced that on the E finding. I think that they have to give us a little bit more to show what is the least variance they can request, and I don't believe that this is the design that makes the most amount of sense or the least they need to become whole.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Oh, Vice Chair Shanda, go ahead.
Oh, I want to point out, I also question the corner lot, whether the rear yard needs to be 30 feet or less. When I read section 23-461, which talks about side yard, there it says 23-461A is for detached and zero lot line buildings. And there it says for two family residences, single or two family residences, zero lot line buildings, or any combinations thereof, side yard shall be provided as set forth in the table, except that on corner lots in R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, one side yard shall be 20 feet wide. So this is not a single family detached or two family detached residence. So, and when I scroll down to semi-detached building, there also it talks about two family semi-detached residences, 20-foot side, 20 foot of side yard would be required for corner lots. But it doesn't then refer to what happens in a multifamily. So maybe for that reason, 30 feet is being provided. That's how I've also questioned it, why not? And as I'm reading this regulation, it's for one and two family.
Right, but it doesn't have any rear lot line. How can you provide a rear yard? It has only side lot lines. They all intersect with the street. The definition of a side lot line.
I agree, but whichever way you would from the point that is the furthest you would count as a rear, it would then measure to as 30 feet since it's a multifamily and not one and two family. I think that's how it's being read. But that's for a DOB determination. And so I think that's why what I was looking at, if that's the line to be drawn and one doesn't gain much because it's the narrower portion of the site, maybe you widen the portion of the site that is widest and allow for a little bit more of the waiver that is being requested for the front yards on both on Coil and Shore, and reduce the building height and allow for a building layout that is more reasonable rather than having duplexes,
Mhm.
3 sets of duplexes.
Duplexes are actually very cool, but not if you have to walk up 5 flights to get.
Exactly, right. I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else before we move on? Okay,
Next item is 2020-35BZ, 13618 Maple Avenue, Queens. This is still a review session.
we have proof of service of the initial application to officials. We have proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. The community board, I don't believe the full board met yet, but we have a committee conditional approval. I know there was an email that was sent kind of late, so please, let's see. This is Daryl's case again. Daryl, please jump in if there was something subsequent to that, but I'm working on the conditional approval from the committee. Okay, so I'm just going to read that unless there's more. The committee members raised concerns regarding the lot's complicated history, since this zoning lot is comprised of 2 tax lots that were merged and there are 2 owners. The 2-story commercial property still has outstanding violations, though the proposed building would not, since there is no commercial use overlapping the residential portion of the lot. Because of these concerns, committee members made the recommendation that any approval of this proposal include an ask to BSA to include an add a DOB required item about clearing up the neighboring building's certificate of occupancy and related issues. I have to admit, I don't understand this unless I'm, Commissioner Ali Brown, did you want to say something? Am I reading something the wrong thing?
We got something more current.
Okay, you want to read that one?
Yeah, Madam Chair, it's Carlo.
Yeah.
We just had received it. So
Okay.
basically it's the community board recommendation, the actual official recommendation. So I have an approval of 32 in favor, 9 against.
Okay.
And in the summary section, all it says is that the motion was approved to approve the application with the recommendation to resolve all outstanding DOB items for the bank building located on the zoning lot.
Okay, so it's about the bank building. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're talking about, but I don't know what it has to do with us. Yeah, just a second. So let me just finish the review. The statement of fact states throughout that the above mean sea level and NAVD 88 are the same. Is there a survey again by a licensed surveyor that confirms that? The NOAA site, that's the, I always get this wrong, National Oceanographic Aeronautics Administration site, shows that these values are different at the Throgsneck datum, which may or may not be the same one as what the surveyor would use. So they need to provide confirmation from a licensed surveyor. And I would like to add again to all of our project managers who work on these kinds of 7366 cases, that they must include a survey from a licensed surveyor that establishes the NAVD 88 datum against the mean sea level datum and shows what the differences are, because that's used, mean sea level is used by the FAA to determine height, and then buildings department and all the construction is done in NAVD 88. And if they're wrong, the building either it gets built too tall, like the other one that we were looking at, the building would be like 1.5 feet taller than it's allowed to be, something like that. So, so anyway, there's that. And then the recommendation to applicants: never submit an application for these type of cases without a survey that indicates those 2 datum and the surveyor signs off on the 2 datum. So in this case, the drawings are very clear with the required zoning bulk studies and FAA approvals overlaid. The building falls behind the sky exposure planes and indicates that the maximum as of right height is between 146 to 150 feet above curb level. The ZD1 on BIS shows the maximum as of right height is 146. So those are consistent information. The building height study appears to indicate that the proposed building height is only 215 feet above grade compared to area buildings that go up to 230 feet above grade. However, the FAA report indicates the proposed heights above grade are up to 246 feet. So this building will be actually taller than them. So there seems to be like a disconnect between the sort of the building height study and the FAA approval stating, but it seems like perhaps what we're talking about is on the building height study, they're looking at roof height as opposed to bulkhead height. So that just needs to be clarified. The FAA report indicates that the proposed building exceeds the 200-foot above ground maximum heights set forth in Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 77, and penetrates the code's horizontal plane by as much as 129 feet and the approach surface by as much as 93 feet. I would like the applicant's aeronautical engineer to explain to us why such penetrations are acceptable. It's just, some of this is for our edification because the more of these we have, the more we learn. The aeronautical study is extremely thorough and goes through more limiting criteria than we normally see. There are many more criteria reviewed in this application than in the previous one we discussed today. The project site sits squarely within the approach to runway 31 and exceeds the allowable height by almost 100 feet. We have another application before us in the same area. So I'd like to understand from the aeronautical engineer, is there a point at which too many buildings that substantially exceed the parameters of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 177, that would pose a hazard to flight? Or is it like once you allow, you know, that to be the height, then that's sort of the permanent condition and the planes either deal with it accordingly or don't have to deal with it because it's still below the sort of the maneuverability requirements. This is a combined zoning lot with the existing two-story retail building. I'd like to understand where is the required parking for it and for the proposed use being provided. It's just mostly it's not really related to this application, but it's to just make sure that everything is tied together. There is a stop work order and partial vacate on 42-01 Main Street, Lot 1, and about $15,000 in ECB violations outstanding. I like the applicant to explain that and show the zoning district boundary line on the site plans. That needs to be shown. And again, do we have a Port Authority letter? I didn't find it in the folder. Okay. Daryl, did you want to add anything?
Oh, no, that was for the committee board. So.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Vice Chair Shanda.
Okay. So I want to, it was a little confusing for me to review this site just from the point of view of what is the actual site that we're reviewing. The zoning lot has two tax lots, and we know one of the tax lot was subject, the subject's lot was actually subject of our BSA review, and I'm being told that that's being abandoned. So, however, you know, the site plan that is being shown here seems to include both the lots 1 and 3. When you look at the plans, it shows the all the various height elevations and everything for all the corners. So I was a little confused by that. And so the applicant needs to clearly show what is the development site that is before us, or is it the zoning lot entirely, or is it just the tax lot that is before us for review? And the site plan, as you indicated, the site plan needs to demarcate the zoning district boundary lines very clearly. And also the commercial overlay that is located partially on this subject tax lot, whatever the commercial floor area, it doesn't cover the entirety of the subject tax lot, it covers part of it. So whatever commercial floor area and the location of commercial floor area is being proposed on the site is not subject of this board's review. And it is subject of DOB's review. So I think a note should be placed on the plan indicating that that we are not reviewing any placement of commercial or anything. It's just the FAA height review that we are doing, just to be safe. And the proposed floor area is not consistent between the documents that have so far been provided between the statement of fact and the zoning analysis.
All right, what's not consistent?
The proposed floor area. Otherwise, I had no comments with regards to document. And I also did not see the Port Authority. I did see the FAA, but I didn't see the Port Authority letter. I have nothing further to add to my comments. What happened to Chair
She has to come back in. Do you want to,
So,
you want to wait or Dara?
Commissioner Otley Brown, do you have any comments?
No additional comments. Nice and easy.
Should we wait for?
She's coming
Sure.
back in.
Back.
Okay,
I have to
all
keep
right.
coming in and out, that's all, sorry.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know what the problem is. I downloaded the new. I updated and everything. I don't know what to say.
Commissioner Otley Brown had no additional comments.
Hello?
Uh,
Oh, boy.
And hello, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Am I ready to go?
No,
No?
could you
Oh.
hang out,
No,
please?
we're still at review session.
We're at review
Sorry,
session,
I
please.
apologize.
Hang out. Thank you.
Chair
NASA?
Perlmutter, Commissioner Otley Brown had no additional comments. We were waiting for Commissioner Sheta to,
Okay, all right,
is
so
that okay?
I'm on, but I'm asking Kurt to please call me to invite because I don't have any reliability on the audio here, so.
Okay,
So
Okay.
please send me a phone invite, but, okay, I didn't hear Commissioner Sheta's, I didn't hear anyone's comments, so,
You guys haven't
Commissioner
spoken yet.
Commissioner Otley Brown had no comments. We were waiting for Commissioner Sheta.
okay, Commissioner Sheta, okay.
Okay, and I'm similar to Commissioner Otley Brown. I don't have any further comments, but I do have something that I noticed in the application, and I just want to read it to the board members so we can learn from that. I did go over the remedial action plan actually, and apparently on this side, it was some contamination that required installing SDS, sub-slab depressurization system, in addition to a waiver barrier. And I'm gonna read from the submission and from the RAB, and it says these measures are standard routine measures included in the design of numerous buildings in New York City. They will be included in the building plans to be submitted to the DOB. So just wanted to educate myself and everybody else that SDS and waiver barriers are not something that's like special to buildings in the city. Just wanted to raise that. Thank you.
So I might have missed the beginning of it, but you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I might have missed the beginning of that, but if I understood correctly, this building has an SDS. And
They are
therefore,
proposing to install an SDS, subslab depressurization system, in addition to a VB, vapor barrier. And what I'm saying is, and they are mentioning that in their submission, that the installation of the SDS plus the VB are like very typical and are done in numerous buildings in the city. So just wanted to alert that when somebody comes to us with this as something unusual hardship, we have to remind each other that we've read this
yeah,
somewhere else. Thank you.
okay. Grain of salt use, yes, okay. All right, thank you. Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. There's nothing further from me on this.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, this concludes the public review session. We will now commence with the public hearing.
Mhm.
Sorry,
Okay.
Tracy, Ms. Benke.
Oh, you had a, oh, I'm sorry, Tracy. I apologize.
Oh,
okay, we-
go ahead,
we
I'm
can talk
sorry.
Should we say it
No,
now?
no, go
or-
ahead, Tracy.
Oh, I just wanted to let you know that the Phase 2 report and the RAP, as Commissioner said, have been submitted, and Mr. Ruffin transmitted them to DEP for review.
Thank you. Okay,
I
now we
also
can
have a
go into the
comment.
hearing. Oh, you have another comment?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
we do have a letter from the Port Authority. It was attached to the cover letter at the bottom
Okay, great,
on
thank
the
you.
July 7th submission.
July 7th, okay, thank you, Darrell.
Okay.
Okay, let's proceed.
Now we move on. Okay, so this
Yeah.
concludes the public review session. We now commence with the public hearing for September 15, 2020, 2 p.m. So the first item is continued hearing 2019-74 BZ 11251 Northern Boulevard, Queens. Mr. Travers,
Need me to swear in? Are we good?
are you the only one?
No, we've got Brett McCabe's here.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of other team members who are in the waiting room.
All right, let's wait for them. Okay, Brent?
Yes, I am here.
Okay.
Should see Clyde Pittman should be in the waiting room.
Mhm.
Dale Ward.
And who?
And
Dale.
Dale Wilford.
Okay,
Dale Wolford, okay. Hamlet Wallace, I don't know who that is.
I believe he's with the community board.
Oh, okay.
He's land use chair.
okay, so we should allow Clyde Pittman to join. Is he in the room or he's just, how's that work?
It's telephone, so he's allowed to talk.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I see Dale just joined as well.
All right, we ready?
Yep.
Good to go.
Okay, so raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Travers, proceed. State your name for the record and proceed.
Okay, good afternoon. Eugene Travers with Kramer Levin for the applicant. We obviously did a tremendous amount of research for this application, and we do appreciate the board's thoughtful consideration. It is correct, this building is going to be larger than its neighbors, but it's also true that there's no site that's as large and as irregularly shaped and tucked into the corner of the neighborhood along the highways as this site. You know, the thing to keep in mind is a building under the R6 district, absent this airport height restriction, could be significantly taller than what's being proposed here. So this is actually a smaller building than could be built otherwise. And Commissioner Shetta, to your points, the legislative history, the board precedent and city planning's own interpretation here Make it clear that this special permit was never intended to set up a comparison of different as-of-right buildings. A shorter building is going to have negative impacts, and we've described this in our application. It's not going to have a motor court, so there's going to be more traffic congestion in an area that's already congested. It's going to provide less economic benefit in terms of construction and permanent jobs. And it's still going to be a significant building. And that's just the nature of this site. But the special permit was never intended to kind of go into that analysis. And I think that was clear in our papers. I'd like to address, Chair, your comments, the technical comment about the different datums. So it's not intuitive at all, but if you look at the surveyor's letter, if you compare the 0 points, so mean sea level, the 0 point is 0.19 feet below the 0 point of NAVD 88. So when you go to the drawings, at first glance, it looks like it's off, but it's actually that 0 point of AMSL is 0.19 below NAVD 88. So it is all consistent and accurate.
So at the risk of sending you off on a tangent that I don't really want to do,
Sure.
I went to the NOAA site, and it's a little bit mean sea level and NAVD 88 for dummies. And I can't do a screen share, but I can, I can't do a screen share. But if you go to the site, there is actually a little diagram at the, and maybe it's not, and Willets Point is what was used by the surveyor to determine the levels. So in the NOAA website, you can go to the Willets Point station, and the Willets Point station, in addition to listing all the heights relative to mean sea level, and then your other choice is to list it relative to NAVD 88, there's a chart. There's also a diagram. So in case there's any doubt, there's this really great little diagram, and the diagram shows mean sea level. It shows it's a section through the ocean, and mean sea level is where it should be, sitting on top of the ocean, and NAVD 88 is above it. And you can do that in both cases, no matter which way you look, either on the NAVD 88 side or the mean sea level side. So rather than try to interpret the very strange language that your surveyor wrote in, because I'm reading it and I'm looking it up, and then I'm reading it and I agree with the surveyor, but it's written sort of contorted language. But then I see the illustration, and the illustration is clear as day. So I'm just wondering if I can, I'm going to look for where the link is, and I can forward that to our council to get you to the link, and then you'll see the picture.
Sure, we'd be happy to take a look at that. I will just say I had the exact same comment and question that you did when I received the surveyor's letter. I looked at the drawings, and I raised that with the architect who studied it very closely and had many conversations with the surveyor. So we believe this is accurate and correct, but we're happy to investigate that further.
Did you show the surveyor the drawing?
I believe so.
The elevation? You're not sure though.
Brett.
So unless the architect's here, I don't feel good about that.
Yeah, we did provide the drawings to the surveyor prior to the letter being drafted. And that's honestly, I think if you compare the letter language, I agree with my colleague, Mr. Travers. It is a little bit of a mouthful, but I believe it accurately reflects based on that benchmark set up as 0. But again,
Are you the architect?
I am not the architect, no.
What's your role?
I'm the project executive.
Okay, but you're not the architect or right? So it's the architect's, let's say, neck on the line. So that's the person who should worry the most, because the way I see it, the building is going to be 0.19, which isn't a lot, but nonetheless 0.19 feet too tall. And then it's going to be an issue with the FAA because you overbuilt your building. Never funny, right? So I'm going to just cut and paste this and send it to our counsel, and maybe he can, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, okay.
Again, I had this.
More to follow on that, okay?
I thought there was an error as well. I looked at it, and our architect did have lengthy discussions with the surveyor, so I believe they're on the same page. But we'll.
Oh, Commissioner Shonda also found it. She just sent it to me. Does it get you, Vice Chair Shonda? I don't see you on the screen.
Yeah.
Are you?
I'm sorry. I was actually trying to see if I could share screen it, but I'm not that savvy. Where am I? Okay,
So
here I
you
am.
showed, okay, you did, no, but so you're in Rye Beach, but we can go to someplace else. Okay, so the website is Tides and Currents, TIDESANDCURRENTS dot NOAA.gov/datums .html. And then you need to find the Willits Point datum, the one that, and I'll see if I can do that right now. Yeah. The Willits Point datum is number 8516-990 as the datum on that chart. And then you're going to look at feet and present. And then it'll tell you elevation, and then you can actually just look at the diagram, but you can choose which datum you want to look at. And so you're going to mean sea level, for example, and submit. And then there's this great diagram that shows mean sea level at 0 on top of the ocean, and NAVD 88 at 0.19. That's positive above the ocean.
Right.
And
so
unless
I- so
NOAA website's wrong,
No, but that's
what
correct.
the
And that's,
surveyor used.
I think that's correct. And that means AMSL is 0.19 below NAVD 88. And if you look at the elevations, that's correct. It shows the 0 point of AMSL, and then that's 0.19 below NAVD 88. I think that's consistent. That's entirely correct. And in the interest of moving this forward, we looked at this very closely, and in the interest of moving this forward, we can ask the architect to reconfirm with the surveyor and
Yeah.
writing. But I had the exact same question you did, Chair, and
Okay.
there was lengthy.
Okay. So I think, yeah, Commissioner Sheta had his hand up.
Yeah, I'm not a surveyor, but I'm looking at the letter and the drawings. And definitely, there is something inconsistent here. If you look at the letter from the surveyor, it says that NAVD is 9.22, MSL is 9.03. That means that there is a difference of 0.19, and anything in NAVD should be more than MSL. If you go to the drawings, and I'm looking at BSA4, for example, if you look at the elevation and you look all the way at the top to the left, you're gonna see that NAVD 88 is less by actually 0.90. So it's the opposite. Elevation in NAVD is 0.19 less. That doesn't mean that if you build, it's gonna be an error of 0.19. Actually, it's gonna be an error of 0.38 foot. It's almost, yes, because instead, imagine that I'm telling you, go below this mark by 5 inches. And instead you go below, you go above. So the difference between the right and the wrong is not 5 inches, it's the double, it's 10 inches. So the difference would be 0.38, almost like 5 inches. It's much better to go to the surveyor and get his opinion on it. And I'm pretty sure that he's gonna change something, whether either the letter or the drawings. But one of these two is wrong.
The surveyor apparently disagreed, but this is obviously a very technical point, so we will.
It's not. It's as simple as 1 + 1 = 2.
I would
If you look at
disagree
the
because
letter,
it seems like there's a lot
just
of
let me, if
confusion.
you look at the letter, how do you read the letter?
Well, I look at the bottom box, Commissioner Sheta, where it says mean sea level, the 0 point is 0.19 feet below the 0 point of NAVD 88. And so then when you go to the elevations on the drawing, mean sea level, the 0 point, it says AMSL 0 point, and then NAVD 88 that's 0.19. So that means that 0 point is 0.19 below NAVD 88. So that drawing.
So actually, that's not what the note on the survey says. It says the opposite. Because it's so weirdly written. It says, I can't find the letter. It's actually the opposite, the way it's written. Sorry, surveyor letter. Here we go. The surveyor letter says, the North American vertical datum of NAVD 88 mean sea level 0
Chair,
is
there's a comma there.
0.1. Yeah, I know. Mean sea level is 0.19 below elevation of the North American vertical datum.
Right. And now let's look at for example, BSA 04, mean sea level.
And no. And you can just, well, unfortunately, his little diagram doesn't show mean sea level on it. It only shows Queens datum. So anyway, I don't want to keep having a debate about this. What I do want is you to submit that's one of the sections to the surveyor, and the surveyor to confirm that the elevations, which makes no sense because you need to look at the website, right, and see that NAVD 88 is always more than mean sea level. It's just simple, more, right? So it means that if mean sea level is 0, which is what's showing on the drawings, then NAVD 88 has to be 0.19 or it's just wrong. Sure. According to the NOAA site and according to the statement by the surveyor. But if you don't believe it, then I need to see the surveyor sign off on that elevation where all the numbers are shown in both.
Sure. We want to be correct just as much as the board, so we will follow up on that.
Okay.
Hopefully the drawings are okay, and just the note written in the letter is just a bit confusing. I hope so.
I hope so too.
I believe
Okay.
the architect is available to explain this, Chair Perlmutter. If that's something that'll help the esteemed board get clarity, I believe the architect is available to join in.
Now, I would like the surveyor to unless the architect actually can certify to us that the surveyor looked at the elevations and confirmed that the elevations on their drawings are consistent with the surveyor's statement in the letter. Okay, I don't think the architect should be doing that on screen. So I would really like it to be done properly. Okay, I've had too many bad experiences with architects thinking that they know it and then they don't know it, and luckily they didn't get sued. So let's move on, okay?
Fair enough. I think the only remaining point was the treatment of violations. It wasn't entirely clear if the board had come to a resolution on how that's going to be dealt with.
Can we just talk about the violations for a second? Why is it that you can't cure the violations?
We have already commenced the payment plan per the board's instructions. We've been in ongoing communication with ECB. We have a confirmation return from them regarding the payment plan. Again, we've kind of made the point in previous hearings before the board that we prefer to adjudicate them based on their duplicative nature as well as our success in getting them dismissed. But hearing the board loud and clear At the last hearing, we did engage ECB and we have commenced the payment plan with them. If the board prefers to make the resolution as far as this special permits approval contingent on the Department of Buildings review and approval of the paid violations, we're certainly fine with that as well. I believe Vice Chair Sean.
No, I know you'd be fine, but no one else gets to do that. Why should this development get to do that? We're talking about little houses, we're talking about little schools, we're talking about all those different kinds of really small sites where it's not a big time developer. They're all expected to address the violations, the open penalties up front before we vote. Why should this site be treated better than those sites?
What we're saying, Chair Perlmutter, is that if it was going to be predicated on the resolution of these violations, I think it does ensure that the cure is put in place. If Vice Chair Shonda's suggestion that a permit cannot be issued until they're taken care of, I think there is a safeguard or a backstop, if you will, in place that ensures that they are, at the very least, we have already commenced that payment plan. So if the board.
So why don't you, so if you, okay, I don't want to keep talking about this. If you've commenced the payment plan and there's something that you've been entered into, I'm not saying the violations have to be cured. The issue is that the penalties had to have been paid, or you enter into a payment plan. That's very typically done. Did you send us the payment plan that it's working everything out?
We have that confirmation we could send over. So as part of the additional information that needs to come in regards to the NAVDA discrepancy, we could send that over as well.
Okay, good. All right, so to be cut to the various chase, we will get some kind of confirmation that ECB and you have worked on a payment plan, and if it turns out you aren't responsible for certain violations, then you, I guess, wouldn't pay the last payment or something like that.
Yeah, again,
whatever, right?
It does get complicated, but we're willing to engage in that payment plan for the sake of obviously closing this out.
Okay, and then I need a letter from the surveyor, or actually trying to think, how do we know, something that ties what the surveyor reviewed to the surveyor's sign off. So in other words, he reviewed drawing number blah, 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 with a certain date, and confirms that the elevations shown on the drawings are correct relative to the information provided on his survey with respect to the levels of NAVD 88 and mean sea level. Okay?
Understood.
All right. Any other comments from commissioners? Anybody else? Okay, so all right, I'd like to go to the public.
The community board person is in the room, so I don't know.
Okay, who's the community board person?
Mr. Wallace?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Sheta and Tracy Benke had their hands up, so let me just get them. Go ahead, Commissioner Sheta.
No, I'm done. I did put my input. I forgot to lower my hand.
Okay, and Tracy?
Same here.
Same, okay. All right, sorry. Okay, let's go to the community board. Who's that?
Mr. Wallace, please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Once again, my name is Hamlet Wallace. I'm from the Community Board 3, and I'm with the Land Use Committee. And we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to submit the testimony regarding the BSA calendar number 2019-74BZ for 112-51 Northern Boulevard. I'm responding to the latest submission of the drawings as of our last BSA hearing, where a new set of documents were required to be provided for clarification and for the Community Board 3 review. We have received enhanced documents. They are as follows: Northwest/Astoria Boulevard rendering along with noted statement. Rendering is for presentation purposes only and not part of a contract document. Interiors of several spaces two floor plans noted as level 1 and level 1 mezzanine, building elevations that will be drawings BSA-04, east elevation BSA-05, south elevation, and BSA-06, north elevation, and one building section BSA-07, section BB. As noted, until a number of drawings are, as noted, are incomplete or limited, as discovered by the community board. And this is as a result of indescribed uses and their locations, related floors and floor functions. Site plan is not current with the floor plan submitted. Floor designations and heights not provided. Our floor plan is not provided, Renderings not true to elevations of the building. Design documents not tailored for comprehension of the community's current since the last submission. In essence, what I'm speaking about is there is need for explanations on a level where the community, which this building is to be addressed based on technicality. The community board would like to, in fact, be privy to allow to have the community to be addressed humanly by they're receiving a proper documentation that they can comprehend if this is going to be within their neighborhood. They should know what's in fact is going to be there. So based in essence, the developer must provide additional documentation and clarification, because those drawings which were sent to us were three attachments by email. I'm sure you have much more now, but when we received it, these are the limitations and the documents that we received, that we were supposed to generate an understanding of what this building is going to do and what its impact has on our community. In addition to that, the available design documents do not provide solid intent of a building design as an element that is true. As a result, the incomplete drawings and the refusal of the developer providing complete, accurate documents, the community cannot support this development. And basically, that's all I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you get a set of drawings subsequent to August, sometime in late August?
The only drawings which I just mentioned are what we have received, nothing more, nothing less.
So you received them when, though?
I don't have that date in front of me.
Was it months ago or was it a couple of weeks ago?
I'm gonna say probably about. Let me think about it. Basically.
Sure, okay, you're not
about a month or two ago. About a month or two ago.
Okay. I just would like to ask the applicant's counsel to please make sure it's required by our rules that you always CC the community board with updates to the submissions, and so submit to them the last set of submissions, okay? But Mr. Wallace, you do understand that this is a request to allow a building to exceed the limitations on building heights located near airports, subject to the review by the Federal Aviation Administration. And this is not a variance or anything, right? This is just FAA, right? Okay, I just want to make sure you understand, because that's why the drawings are limited to that subject. We don't look at the floor plans or anything like that on this, but but I recommend, and I understand there's been a lot of different kinds of community outreach by the property owner, and that perhaps the property owner might make another presentation to the community board just as a good neighbor with renderings or something. But that's not actually our domain, okay? Just as sort of good neighbor relations. Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there somebody else who would like to speak on this?
All right, again, this is BSA calendar number 2019-74BZ regarding 112-51 Northern Boulevard, Queens. If you're currently an attendee, please use the Zoom raise hand feature so that we can recognize you. If you're on a telephone, please call or please dial *9 to raise your hand. Again, if you're on a telephone and you would like to speak about calendar number 2019-74BZ, please raise your hand by pressing *9 or using Zoom's raise hand feature. We do have a number of attendees that have registered that we will now recognize.
In order, Renata English.
In order. Okay, so next up.
So I'm clicking on Renata English to talk, let her talk.
Hi, my name is Renetta English. I'm chair of Queens Community Board number 3, and I have to piggyback on what Mr. Wallace said in regards to the drawings and so on. But Ms. Giovanna Reed, our district manager, was trying to get in. Do you see her on hold there?
The last name is English, is that right? Maybe it's not, maybe it's only a telephone number, so.
She registered with the telephone number, but I do not see her telephone number in as an
Because she said she's on hold right now, waiting to come in.
What is her telephone?
917 49.
Sorry, just the last 3 digits.
8386.
Yeah, we have that.
All right, can you please unmute her, please? Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I think everyone is permitted now.
Okay, good afternoon.
So, state your name, please.
Good afternoon. This is Giovanna Reed, District Manager of Community Board 3. Thank you for allowing me to speak this afternoon. I wanted to say that the developer did reach out to the community board, and we requested the plans. It was a very good try, but it still does not define exactly what the development will be. I'm still not clear as to what the height will be, whether it's 20 stories, 37 stories, and there are very, very little detail for the members of the board and community to have a better understanding of what is to be constructed in our community. I understand that that perhaps there might be some letters of support, but I'm not aware of any specific outreach that was coordinated with the community board. I also understand that this is not a variance, but it is of great concern to our community that we're going to have a tower overshadowing the tallest buildings in our district is 7 stories in height. We still have very little information about this project. And again, we're very concerned. I know that this application is pertaining to whether or not it is permissible to construct such a tall structure in a flight path. But there are also other concerns too, which I believe should be relevant to this application, and that is the impacts to the community. Northern Boulevard, which at 114th Street, is the entrance exit of the Grand Central Parkway. I understand that this development will have an impact on traffic. Has there been a traffic study, and what is the results of the traffic study? There are a lot of questions that have not been answered, and it cannot simply be answered by sending a set of drawings that really don't shed light on what this project is all about. Once again, I want to underscore that these are going to be our neighbors, and we need better communications. I did say that they did reach out to us. They did supply us with plans, but we need a better understanding. And normally what happens when we have such large development, we're able to sit down at the table to speak to the developer. We can register our concerns, and when the plans are being developed, they keep our concerns in mind. And this is not what has happened. This has been an irregularly handled project. We have seen development in our community many times. There's a structure on Roosevelt Avenue. We worked very, very closely with the developer. None of those things have happened here, and the community is very concerned about what is going to happen at that corner, which is the very end of our district. So once again, at this juncture, the board would not be able to support this project because we don't have sufficient information.
Okay,
Thank you very much for providing Community Board 3 an opportunity to express the needs and concerns of our district. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I do have a question though, which is I asked Mr. Wallace about. Did you receive a submission towards the end of August?
I think it was probably mid-August. Somewhere. I could probably get back to you with the specific date. Unfortunately, we are operating remotely, so I don't have access to my records. But I believe it was about mid-August. Were there 2 sets of drawings that were sent?
Yeah, well, I don't know what was sent to the community board that I'd like to ask the applicant to talk about, but we received on August 25th a submission, 26th a submission. That's our deadline for a submission, and it included a set of much better drawings that should make very clear what the height of the building is, and it included some renderings of the experience on the street with respect to that building. This is a limited review. August 30th is when you received it?
The email from Mr. Dale Woodford.
Yes, I'm online to answer any questions if that's possible.
Okay, so Mr. Woodford, you're the person who forwards the information, is that correct?
Yes, the information that you're looking at is the same that was sent to them.
Hey, Mr. Travers, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I think there's a little confusion. So the submission that was made to the board was sent out in the ordinary course to the notice parties, and proof of submission proof of service was submitted to the board. I believe Dale, who has been following up with various stakeholders, may have sent other information. So I just want to make sure we're aware of what we're talking about. But the submission to the board was circulated.
Okay. So the submission. So assuming the community board got it, the drawings should be very clear about what the height of the building is. They're much better drawings than we were looking at previously. They're much more detailed, and the height should be clear. the review by this board is very limited. We do not look at the floor plans, only at the building height relative to the zoning restrictions and the Federal Aviation Administration restrictions. The other thing that we get is an extremely technical aeronautical engineer report to understand compliance with the FAA regulations. And that's the limit of our review. This is considered a type 2 action under the environmental review law. And as a result, we do not ask for traffic studies and so on, because the building is ordinarily as of right if it had not been being proposed near an airport. If it were being proposed a little bit to the left or a little bit behind, it wouldn't fall within the airport flight path. So that's the issue. Tracy, did you want to add something?
I was just, yes, that's correct. We have a noise analysis screen and hazmat for this because those are specific prerequisites to the type 2. There's no traffic for this type of application review.
All right. Okay. Thank
if
you.
I might, Chairwoman, if I might just add that our chair of land use testified that the information that was sent to us was incomplete. So if that was the only set of drawings, then I will stand with him and say that the drawings were incomplete. And while the BSA does not take up the issue of traffic, I'm not sure where we can mitigate that, but it really needs to be taken a look at, because already without that structure, 114th Street or Northern Boulevard is our most heavily congested street in our entire district. And I can't understand why the impact of developing a building that is going to be 20 to 37 stories is the traffic patterns and so forth are not going to be considered. I know this is not your area of concern, but it is the concern of the community, and I'm not sure.
Understood. But I just want you to know that included in the submission, and Mr. Travers, I would ask that you maybe resend or verify that the entire package that you sent to the board, to the Board of Standards and Appeals, is the same package that went to the community board as opposed to a truncated version. But included in that is what they call a feasibility study that was dated 8/26. And the feasibility study looks at a building that could be built as of right without the requested height waiver. And it includes all of the same amount of floor area as is proposed in this building. So the amount of floor area would generate the same amount of traffic. So if we had done a traffic study under the environmental review, we would have found out that there's no difference between the as of right and the proposed, and so there would be no impact. So maybe what you're talking about is that it would be a big building, whether it's built as of right or with our review in terms of the amount of floor area. So, and what you're probably talking about is that the zoning hasn't changed for this site, as Commissioner Shanda mentioned. And so it allows for a building to have 383,000 square feet of floor area, and the proposed is 383,000 for both the as of right, if it were built that way, and the proposed building. So, but I do recommend that the applicant reach out a little more with the community board, just to for good neighbors. When I'm looking at their what's called their community outreach, public outreach summary, it indicates that there were meetings with the community board in 2014 and 15, and attending whatever they are, several meetings conducted at Community Board 3, ongoing discussions and presentations made with standing together on principle, transmission and in-person presentation of a proposed set of plans, submission of a visual comparison demonstrating the difference between the proposed and the as of right, and submission of the results of a conducted traffic study. So apparently they even did a traffic study, but I don't want to get into that too much here. I would recommend, though, the applicant and the community board meet just on an informational basis, because it's no longer something that we expect to be done, because they met their requirements to appear before you with respect to this application.
Okay. I just wanted to say, though, all those meetings that you made reference to, those were meetings where a set of plans was not available, all the way up to our meeting in October of 2019. It is only when the BSA required them to share their plans with us, which happened in August, is the first time that we saw anything. So I just wanted, that was, I wanted to, make you aware of that situation.
I object to that. This is Dave.
Okay, Mr. Wolford, please don't, we'll recognize you after. It's not a back and forth amongst, okay? So I appreciate that. And again, recommending to the project team that they would meet with the community board on an informational basis, and maybe there can come to some agreement about however, or understanding, okay? But I'm going to move on to the next speaker, please. So is there there are other people with their hands up? Thank you very much. So we have Giovanna. Oh, she already spoke. There's someone.
Edwin Wesley.
Yeah, I think.
Registered as a member of the public. So
okay.
Wesley, if you would like to speak.
Yes, this is me. Can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, will do. I'll be brief. I'm Edwin Wesley. I'm a committee member of the Land Use Committee. It actually gets worse for the Land Use Committee. We weren't given these drawings until September 10th, which was a couple of days ago, and we were asked to review them. So I'm not going to get into any of the details that Hamlet covered or our district manager, because I'm not proficient in that area. But I did want to talk to the issue of community outreach. It's never been a dialogue. It's always been, we will present you with whatever we want to present you with, and that's it. It has, I'm sure there's a long shopping list, but the outcome has always been the same. We will present this, but we don't have to take any questions. We don't need to have any comments from the public. So that's really the status with us. Now, I'd like to get back to the committee hearing itself. There was one of the commissioners said, we're not here to represent the community and do their bidding.
No, that's not at all what she said. She said
what did she say?
She said we're not here to broker a deal with the community. That's not our role. We are here and to listen to the community's input, and where the input affects our decision making, we incorporate it into our decision making, where it's relevant to our decision making. Commissioner Ollie Brown, did you want to add anything else?
Okay, I guess my ears hear different things when I'm involved in this controversy. But I did want to comment on some of the presentation material that was given to us on the as proposed and the alternate, meaning the right of way, as of right, I'm sorry. Obviously, it looks like a big storage unit, the alternate as of right proposal, whereas the proposed looks like a very fancy, sexy design of, we haven't gotten the information on how tall is, we've gotten the information on how tall, but never any indication of how many stories that means. We were led to believe that as of right, they could build between 12 and 14 stories. And during the conversations we've had with them, it ranges, what they want to build is anywhere between 18 and 30 stories. We've never gotten a definitive answer on that question. And as far as the design of the building, they probably could have just gone to the Hyatt Regency because it's a Hyatt Regency hotel. It's the same vacuum in density in the middle of the hotel that goes all the way down to the 3rd floor where there's no occupancy. I'm not qualified to talk about the FAR, but this is a monstrosity of a building that they're plumping in an urban environment. This would have been a nice campus building, but it doesn't belong in this environment. So thank you very much for listening to me. And if I have added comments, I will send them in. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? I see a hand up from Giovanna Reed, but she already testified. So I think, so that's it, right? No other speakers? So Kurt, could you say again if you, so we have Z. Fierstein who raised his or her hand. Let's see. There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Chair Panatter. This is Shiva Feinstein, and I'm the architect for the project, and I would like to explain the addendum situation quickly, if you allow a few minutes for me.
Sorry, you'd like to explain the what?
The addendum difference in the
datum. Can
Yeah.
you hold off, please? We're in the public testimony place right now. Okay. So hold off until we go back to the team. Okay. There are
Okay.
other people with their hands up. So that's also Renata. I'm just looking at somebody 533, last 3 digits. I'm allowing to talk. State your name
Hello?
if you can hear us and you want to speak. Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. State your name,
Yes,
please.
Yes, my name is Wesley McLean.
Yes. My name is Adam Feblis. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. So,
Okay.
Mr. McLean, please proceed because you came in first.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you just for an opportunity to address this board. My name is Wesley McLean, and I've been a long-time member of this community for many decades. It's been a strong and a progressive community and the home of many celebrities, sports figures, Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Willie Mays, just to name a few. Okay, new residents from all over the world have integrated seamlessly into this community. They have become our friends and our neighbors. Unfortunately, we all have been devastated from the effects of this pandemic. It has taken a heavy toll on this community. The food drive lines last Saturday at the Hilton Park were, excuse my language, they were taller than this proposed project, longer in length than the building is high. Okay, we experienced some of the highest death rates in the country for months. We need this project for the jobs it will create, the tax revenues it would generate, and the new business it will bring to our overall community. The towering height of this building will stand as a beacon of hope, progress, and recovery for all to see. When we look back on these times, this community and this board, we want to see that, in fact, we were on the right side of history. I just want to thank you for your time, and we all look forward to a favorable decision and
Thank you.
And healthy recovery.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Sorry, the next person whose last 3 digits is 533. Can you say your name, please?
Yes. Hello. My name is Adam Feblis. I guess I'll start really briefly. I am 26 years old. So for my entire life, I've lived in New York, and I see a lot of potential benefits to this project. I look forward, honestly, to this completion because it will uplift Corona in a new way. When I spoke to the developers, what was promised was exactly what Corona needs. My favorite aspect about this project is the view from the top floors. I love the idea of waking up and being on top of the world, I guess you'd say. Without having obstructed view, it makes it more thrilling and exciting compared to Manhattan, where everything has obstacles. To speak about Manhattan as well, I wouldn't have to travel far to reach Manhattan from the hotel, as public transportation is right in the area. So there's honestly a huge potential to save money if I'm traveling. I could just book from Corona and travel to Manhattan. The building will stand out not only by the exterior itself, but by the interior. I was informed that the latest technology will be implemented per room, things like touch screens, strong Wi-Fi, and other technologies that make it vital to making this hotel a great success, in my opinion. Within the area, Flushing Bay is what separates LaGuardia Airport and this hotel. The view would oversee the airport and provide its customers a vista by the water. The most important aspect of reaching new heights within the community is the jobs. The workforce has been unstable, especially now. This project would give back to the economy and inherently boost our community upward. Stores in the area would benefit. More beds means more people, and more people brings in more business. Jobs are at record lows, and there would be a large flux of income for us, the people. There is going to be a range of job opportunities, employment opportunities for many people with many talents within entertainment, hospitality, service, skilled labor, and even in social media. No one else offers what this building is going to provide. There will be a multitude of employment opportunities for the people of Corona, and I strongly agree that this will be a positive impact. I apologize. Sorry. I don't understand honestly why someone would complain about the building being too high. The rumors of the building being 40 stories are false. It's supposed to be instead roughly 22 stories. And I'll wrap it up here with the great innovation. There will always be two opinions that reflect entirely opposite views. I mentioned my interests, and I thought you should consider during this hearing. Being a part of this decision holds an important role for giving Corona an amazing addition that is essential to us. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony. Do we have one other person with their hand up who may have spoken already? Last three digits, 098.
Yes, hello?
Yes. Say your name, please.
My name is Julio Rosic. I have an employment agency in Corona, and I'm also a homeowner in East Amherst. That's for the past 10 years. Well, I'm here to support my community and this project. As a business owner and a homeowner here in the area, as you have known, this virus really hit us hard, not only health-wise, but financially. Most businesses that I know were forced to close for 10 weeks, at least 10 weeks. My employment agency used to serve, just last year, 1,173 clients. This year, I'll be lucky if I do 300. Okay, that's quite a big difference. So I was really happy when I heard that this project was coming up. Not sure what the problem is with the project, really, because all I think about is the jobs that will bring. Not only good construction jobs, but the permanent jobs. That's what people should really look at, the permanent jobs that will stay in this community. And, if you give us the chance to work, to get new employment, get people from the neighborhood employment, I think it will be just really beneficial to us. Not only will we be able to pay our mortgage, our rent, but believe me, we'll spend the money here. And we don't really like Manhattan anyway. All right? But I appreciate your time. I hope you approve this project, and I wish everybody lots of luck. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Who's speaking?
Hi, my name is Renetta English, again, Chair of Queens Community Board number 3. And I'll just like to reiterate that at our community board meeting, there were a number of hundreds of people from the community that came out that had serious issues with this building. And as Ms. Reed talked about it, and as Ed Wesley talked about it, and as also Hamlet Wallace, the community does have issues of it that will impact those that live there. And I am an East Elmhurst resident in regards to traffic and so on. So I still contend that we have issues with I'm glad to know that the gentleman that just spoke two speakers ago knows it's 20 stories. The community board never knew how many stories this building was supposed to be. This is never explained to us in any of the drawings that we received. So again, I like to reiterate that the community does have issues with this property, and I leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony and your participation. Okay, I don't see any.
I see.
Let me see.
attendees
Oh,
with their hands up.
I don't see any other members of the public. Do you, Kurt?
I see the phone number 849. If your phone
with
number
their
is
hand.
please state your name.
Ronald Stevens.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have lived in East Elmhurst for over 20 years. I currently have been running a transportation and limo business for over 7 years. Due to this pandemic, my business has suffered dramatically. I have been forced to downsize to one vehicle now, heavily in debt, and I believe that this project is a great shot in the arm, not only for myself, but for other startup companies, permanent jobs, and just to raise the whole level of the community as far as having a luxury, something that we could call our own, and also raise the property value, which definitely helps out everyone, including myself, who is a homeowner, and many other people in the community. I am completely supportive of this. I think the length of the height of the building is really no issue. And honestly, it's at the end of Northern Boulevard. I don't see how any traffic infractions could be a problem there. I also feel like a bigger building will also provide more jobs, more opportunities for new businesses, and long-term business and long-term jobs, which this community desperately needs in these troubling times. I have nothing more to say. I hope that you guys will vote in favor of it. I think it's vital, and it's a life-changing opportunity for East Elmhurst as well as Corona, as well as everywhere else. And I want to keep the jobs at home here, and I think it will help grow and make the community better all in one shot, and add a tremendous amount of value to the community, and that's desperately what we need at this particular time. Thank you for your time, and I hope everyone have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. I also see phone number 855. Is that person already spoken with their hand up? No? Last three digits, 855.
As a reminder, if you're on the telephone, please press *6 to unmute yourself and then state your name. Again, that's *6 if you would like to speak.
Okay, in the meantime, while we see if the person with phone number 855 wants to speak, because at the moment they seem to be muted. Commissioner Sheta had his hand up before. Would you like to add anything? Oh, there you go. I'm sorry. Go ahead. State your name,
I'm so
please.
sorry. Oh, hi, commissioners. Good afternoon. My name is Angeli Peralta, and I have been living in the Queens area for about 15 years now. And I'm here to testify about why I support this hotel construction for my community. At first, it will be a huge opportunity for construction workers like my husband. And it's going to be good because my kids they go to PS 330. and it's right like about 2 blocks away. So something like that is going to be good for me and the neighborhood. I believe this project will reduce the homeless population also, especially after this pandemic situation, because many people will be facing eviction and foreclosures. That's for sure. And because I have been seeing people struggling about it. I think also that this project will bring many tourists to the Queens area, so more opportunities about business around the hotel, and especially for the people who live there to have more job positions at the hotel, for example, because for me it's difficult. I have 2 kids and I'm not able to go, not even to the city, to work because it's very difficult for me to take care of them. So it's going to be great if I can take care of them because I work close to the school, close to the house, and I think it's going to be great. I truly support this project, and I hope you guys think about it and be positive about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Kurt, do you want to you dial *9 if you called in on a phone, if you would like to speak on this application. There's one more person who just last 3 digits 988, so I'm going to allow them to talk. And state your name, please.
Hi, my name is Carlos Cotto.
Can you say it again? It's a little hard to hear you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. My name is Carlos Cotto. Good afternoon. Sorry. Well, I'm also in favor of this project. I feel the same way as a lot of people have mentioned. I'm a field supervisor for Fleet Financial, and I see how much everyone is struggling right now, thanks to this COVID-19, this epidemic that has affected this particular area of Corona so badly. I'm a very passionate person, so I see that this is something that we need right now. We need more jobs. We need everything that this project is potentially going to bring to us, especially now. I wanted to also talk about a misconception that I just became aware about related to the amount of businesses that will benefit for this. Basically, like I said, I feel very passionate that this is going to do good for us. It's going to be good for us. And we should just simply go for it and do what we have to do to boost up the morale and jobs, which is the most important thing to my part. Thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. And then we have one other person in last 3 digits, C608. If you could identify yourself, please, and unmute, which is *6. There you go. *6 to unmute for phone number 608, last 3 digits. Okay, while we wait, oh, there we go.
Yes, hello.
Go ahead. Yes, state your name, please.
Frank Taylor, how are you?
State your name, please.
Frank Taylor.
Taylor, okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, how's everybody? I hope everyone's doing well. I apologize for being on the call late. I am against the project because of very simple reasons. that a 30-story building does not equate to jobs for this area. I am a 30-year East Elmhurst resident. I'm retired law enforcement. This building does not equate to any type of jobs or job increases in Elmhurst or in East Elmhurst. Most of the people who work in the hotels do not even come from the area. And that's proved by their predecessors as the Marriott and all these other places. It doesn't do anything for the community except for adding more traffic because there's another hotel right next to it. There are two schools, or there's a school they're building right down there, and some other center they're building. It's all in one bottleneck. No one has done the air quality or the traffic studies that they did do. I don't think are true as far as this project goes. There was also a thing with the FAA giving the approval for this building. Well, my question is, what does the FAA have to do with this building? What right do they have to come in? There's no federal money going in there. And what does that have to do with the FAA? Very simply, all these guys have skirted the community. They've done everything that they could do in their power not to sit with anyone in the community to divulge what their plans are actually for this building. Now, the landscape of East Elmhurst over there on Northern Boulevard, everything is 6 stories, 8 stories. There's nothing 20, 30 stories on that block. And then to build everything else around it, what about the traffic? What about the air quality? The air quality is not even being measured. It's the same thing as when LaGuardia was jammed, if we remember that probably a year ago. Well, what about all the carbon monoxide that's delivered from the cars and the noxious fumes that's delivered from the cars because it's a parking lot there? And with the school buses and everything else there that will be there at the same basic time, where's the traffic go? Where does the exhaust go? It goes right into these people's lungs who are saying they want this project, who probably don't even live there. You know, you have Dory Miller that lives over there. I like I said, I apologize. I didn't hear anyone from Dory Miller, but this is what all that they have to deal with. And it's not right because when they bought the places 20, 30, 40 years ago, of course, change has to happen, but not like this. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. Okay. I don't know if I see any other hands up. Star. Oh, yes. No, we already heard from him.
Number 904 call in. Phone number 904.
Okay.
If you would like to speak, please press *9.
Phone number, last 3 digits, 904. Unmute yourself by pressing *9 on your phone. There you go. Say your name, please. Phone number 904, please state your name. Did the number hang up?
It appears so.
Okay, I think we lost that one. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Commissioner Sheta, who had his hand up, and if someone calls in, we can always go back to them. Okay, go ahead. Commissioner Sheta?
Thank you, Chair.
You're
I
muted.
just want to mention that I did look at the NOAA website, and I did look at the letter from the surveyor. I believe the top portion of the letter is confusing. Now I understand that the drawings, the elevations in the drawings are consistent with what NOAA website says, and it is consistent with the note, the boxed note in the letter from the surveyor at the very bottom. So I don't have an issue with it. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just to get that clear. You looked at the NOAA website to see what the elevation should be, NAVD 88 against mean sea level, and you think that it's correct on the elevation.
I now believe that MSL numbers should be greater than NAVD 88 numbers. If you look at the surveyor letter at the top, you're gonna see the number for NAVD is 9.22, which is smaller than the MSCL, which doesn't make sense. And if you want me to explain it, I can share my screen and explain it, but I don't think we need to do.
No, we don't need to spend more time on this. I still am kind of concerned. So I would like, as I requested, just the surveyor to sign off on it, and that way we can just put it to bed, since they have time and they have a surveyor now, as opposed to before where they told us they didn't have a surveyor. So thank you. Okay, and so I know that the architect had called in to discuss the relative heights, and because we've been going on too long with this hearing and we have two others, I'd rather just resolve it with that letter from the surveyor confirming review of the elevation and the data on the elevations, that they are correctly representing what is the elevation of NAVD 88 versus sea level. Okay.
Most likely the surveyor is not going to be able to certify the elevations on the architectural, but I would say the surveyor need to remove the top portion in his letter and just keep the boxed note and say something like in writing, or maybe he can put a sketch like the NOAA one, and that would resolve it.
Well, I would like him to have reviewed the actual elevations by the architect. So I would like him to say, I reviewed the architect's elevation drawing number, whatever drawing number it is, and say the elevations shown on the drawings for NAVD 88 and mean sea level are accurate, beginning at, say, at grade level, something like that.
Sure.
Okay, I don't want it to be a completely separate diagram that's unrelated to the drawings, because that says to me he didn't review the drawing, and I need him to review the drawing, okay? All right, so then
Chair
I would like
Perlmutter,
to.
if I can, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go
if I could just, there's been some discussion in the background while we've been having these, the continued testimony, and there is a concern, and I think Commissioner Sheda is onto it, that the surveyor may not be able to provide exactly what you're looking for in terms of certification. So I don't want us to get stuck in a position where we can't do that. We certainly want to be responsive. So I don't know, we have the architect online who did discuss this at length. As
I'm sorry, Mr. Travers, I don't want to talk about this anymore. We've been doing this for 2 hours and we have to move on. So I would like you to make the effort, because unfortunately your submission also said that the surveyor was out of business, and then I called the surveyor and they were not out of business, right? So I don't want you to anticipate the surveyor's response. Instead, ask them. Surveyors will do that. They'll look at the drawing and make sure you're doing it right, right?
We will ask that.
They'll look at the drawing and you'll ask him to make sure you're doing it right, and he'll say, he'll write on a letter that says, I looked at drawing XYZ, and the way that the elevations are shown and the datum are shown is accurate and consistent with my survey. He's not signing and sealing anybody else's drawing, so I don't want to discuss this anymore. It's enough, okay? All right, so is there anybody else with their hand up? I see a panelist with somebody's hand up. No? Okay. Okay, so then I would like, so we have looked at this very extensively. We've reviewed all the materials other than to make the corrections on the elevations if it's necessary, and other than to give us the proof of the payment plan with the ECB. There are no other submissions that are needed. So I would like to, let me just see, there's one more hand up, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we need to allow this person who just dialed in, which is.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioner.
My name is Jacqueline Duboulay. I am a resident of the Dory Miller Housing, directly across from the construction site on Northern Boulevard. I'm calling to speak to say that we are indeed, as a community, very much concerned about the height of the building, the number of the occupancy, and the potential that it would have events all hours, all days, 7 days a week, directly across from our community. We've seen and experienced when Citi Field has games, baseball games, the influx of traffic, and they have to have extra officers on hand to direct traffic in and out the entrance to Grand Central Parkways. How is this building, if they schedule conferences and events, going to handle that situation that could occur simultaneously with the events held at Citi Field? I think we must also keep in mind there's going to be an offload of traffic if an event indeed they decide to build the air train to LaGuardia Airport. That means traffic is going to be rerouted onto local streets. That would seriously impact the residents of Dory Miller Housing Company. As it is now, because of the construction on Northern Boulevard side, we had to sacrifice several street parking spaces because now it has changed to no parking anytime. We, the residents, are in favor of any projects that would provide jobs to the community. We get that. We ask that the board consider the height. Even though it says it meets FAA standards, we would like the board to consider the impact of having this height and the number of floors that would impact our infrastructure, the water, sewer system, that would impact the fact that there is a middle school built adjacent to this property, and it would impact the flow of traffic for cars. The cross street of 114th Street was directly for the residents' homes, and which is a bus stop, 114th Street and Northern Boulevard. Public transportation.
I'm sorry, Mr. Blake, could you wrap up? Your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So again, I'm just voicing on behalf of the Dory Miller Housing community. We are very much following this development, and we would like them to reach out to our community as far as what benefits that we would gain. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate it. Okay, I see only one other general phone number with the last 3 digits, 243. If you would like to speak, raise on this application, raise your hand by dialing *9. Because I'm about to finish this hearing. Okay, I don't see anybody else with their hand up. If you want to speak, dial *9, or I'm going to close the opportunity for guests to call in. Okay. All right. So then I would like to make, provided we don't have any other issues, Mr. Travers, can you tell me how long it's going to take you to respond to those 2 open issues?
We intend to reach out to the surveyor this evening.
Sorry, say it again louder.
We intend to reach out to the surveyor this evening. The payment plan is a little bit more of a question mark because that's control, it involves ECB, but we're going to try to do this, in a matter of weeks, two weeks, hopefully.
Sorry, you need to go closer to your mic. Either it's me or it's your.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so we intend to reach out to the surveyor this evening. We should be able to get that pretty quickly, assuming he can provide that or something close to it. And the ECB payment plan is a little bit more of a question mark because it obviously involves an agency, but we are going to follow up with that, diligently. So hopefully we can have this in a matter of weeks, ideally 2 weeks if possible.
Okay, so let's say 4 weeks, just because. Okay, so 4 weeks to submit is what I'm going to base the allocation of the next hearing on, and right, does that sound right? Because, and anyway, we don't necessarily have time before, so, okay. So I would like then, unless there's objections from the board members, to make a motion to close this hearing.
No? Okay.
No objection, so motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
So I want to thank all of the people who called in. I think we had 17 people calling in. We may have had even more to do the math differently. And I really appreciate your participation in these hearings.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
We can move on to the next one. Oh, actually, it's been
New cases,
2.5 hours, 10-minute break for 10-minute break for the commissioners. Okay, coming back at 4:40. Okay?
Thank you, board.
Okay. Kurt, you want to turn my video on, Kurt?
Hey, commissioners, if you could come back, please.
Aye.
Commissioners Shonda. That's all who we're missing. And Kurt, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear
Want
me,
to text
everybody?
her? Yeah.
Kurt, if when you get on, I just want to, or Steve or somebody, if all of a sudden you don't see me, hear me speaking, because now I'm on, or maybe I'm not. Now, if you don't hear me speaking, can you then call me, send that invite call? Because at the moment I'm on through video. Thanks.
Yeah.
And otherwise, when I become a, mute against my will, thanks.
Is Dara on?
Oh, sorry. I just sent you a text, Jumper. Ignore that. I didn't see you on.
No, I was having difficulty getting in. So now I'm in now.
Okay.
I'm on.
Okay.
Were you able to restart? Did it work?
I didn't do it yet. I'm going to do it after.
Okay. Let me know if you need anything.
I'm working off my iPad, so it works.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Okay, let's get started with this next one.
Okay, we're back on the record for public hearing, September 15, 2020, 2 p.m. session. The next item is new cases, item number 28, 2019-67 BZ, 2781 Coyle Street, Brooklyn.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon.
Are you the only person, Amanda?
So my architect was with me before. I don't know if we lost her due to time. Do you see Anastasia waiting?
Anastasia.
No.
Okay. That's okay.
Okay, so you
let's just get started.
Okay, so raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board to respond to board member questions?
I do.
All right, proceed.
Amanda Iannotti on behalf of the applicant. I did listen to the board's comments this afternoon regarding 2781 Coyle Street, Brooklyn. First, I'll address the CB denial. I did attend the land use committee and the full board, and the explanation that they provided is in fact correct. There was some skepticism about how skinny the building was and how viable it really was as a development, and there was disbelief that it was going to be built. So that was it there. There was some support, but in the end, the skepticism did carry. Okay. So comments, there was a few comments about the area study that was provided. I apologize if it seemed incomplete or bare boned, but that is only because there's actually only 2 lots within the radius that are a vacant triangular corner lot. Us and the lot that the statement of facts points out, 2797 Bragg Street, on the street adjacent to us, on the block adjacent to us, to the east. The area study PDF file shows the radius, shows that vacant lot in gray. on the land, in the land use colors, and then the picture that's provided is of that lot 2797 Bragg Street. There's a little Google Street View tag up in the corner that shows that it's used as an accessory parking lot, seemingly to the adjacent multifamily building. The radius map shows 2 other vacant lots in gray in the study area. However, the statement of facts notes that they are not corner lots and they are not irregularly shaped. I can include these 2 images into the statement of facts if that makes it more complete to the board.
Yes, please. I mean, I think the main problem with the uniqueness study was it wasn't labeled. Like you couldn't figure out why am I getting this map? Which are the 2 lots in question, and what's that photograph of?
Yeah, no, I agree. I should have notated the PDF a little bit better. You had to view it in conjunction with the statement of facts, but I could make it definitely more clear.
Okay.
Okay. Error in the as of right zoning analysis floor area table. I will have the architect address. They'll also review the rear yard requirements / side yard requirements and what applies since it is a corner lot. They will add floor area charts to each floor plan. I did speak with the architect and the applicant after the comments, and they are going to explore increasing the waiver for the front yards to, we're going to look at 5 feet as suggested by Commissioner Shanda. And we're also going to explore a 2-family, 2-duplex development. So that would be a 4-story, 2-family building, 2 duplexes with 2 front yards of 5 feet. So that's what we'll look at coming back to the board with.
Great, and that way you won't need the waiver on lot size.
Correct.
So.
In addition, the applicant is going to request from the title company a single and separate deed search. The architect will also submit to DOB a CCD1 to confirm compliance with flood regulations. They will need to revise the proposed plans first, so it'll take a bit of time to do that, then do the CCD1. I do think that's what's going to take us the longest time to return to the board, because they're not sure how long it's going to take DOB to turn around a CCD1. We're thinking we would maybe ask for about 3 months, honestly, to be safe. So they're going to work on the CCD1. The objections about curb cut parking location and 0 lot line building may change as the development changes. So they're going to review that as the proposed plans are revised. I will supplement the application with a yard study and height study. And add elevations noting all finishing materials. And I think that might be everything.
That sounds like everything. Did she leave anything out? I just have to say it's so refreshing when you just do what you just did. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. Any remaining questions from anyone? Okay. Commissioner Shanda, did you want to say something?
Did I miss the self-created hardship argument?
No, she said they're going to do a separate and single deed search, which is the
okay. All right. I missed that part. I was taking notes. Okay.
Okay. Great. So now I'd like to go to the public. I don't know if any of the people who are sitting in the waiting room now are related to this who want to speak on it. If you do, please raise your hand.
The case we're speaking, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
The case we're speaking about right now is 2019 67 BZ 2781 Coyle Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, so let's, hold on a second. Let me see. Kurt, did you see anyone?
I don't see anybody registered to speak as a member of the public, but again, please use the Zoom raise hand feature if you would like to speak, or press *9.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't see the participants. Okay, I don't see any hands. Do you see any hands up in that participants list? I can't seem to get to that window right now.
No.
Okay. Okay, so, oh, here it is. There we go. All right, then. So I think, Ms. Ionati, everything that you said you would do, please do. And we will give you 3 months to submit, and I'll let you know when the next hearing schedule is. We'll send that out sometime later this week or the beginning of next. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
One quick question. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. So usually they have to send everything back to the community board as per our rules. So we want to wait. They'll send the revised project to the community board.
Oh, but that's not that they have to appear. It's only that they are supposed to, whenever they make a change, our rules require a submission of the changes to all the officials, which includes the community board.
Right. So do we want to wait for another response from the community board?
No. That's not what
Okay,
our rules say. Our rules just want to keep the community board informed about the project, but not to hold yet another hearing before the community board. Otherwise, that would, yeah, no.
Take forever. Okay.
Well, it's to keep them informed. If they have comments, they're welcome to come and testify here.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Ionati.
Thank you.
Okay. So then the next item is 2020-35BZ 136-18 Maple Avenue, Queens. It's the firm of Brian Cave. James Colgate is appearing.
When you can hear us, just state your name and that you can hear us, but you need to be sworn in, right?
How many people are with you?
We have available 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 people. If there are questions, hopefully there will be none, but should we get them all together?
Yeah. State their names so that we can know who's on here.
Okay, so let me do a roll call of who will be swearing in, and then we'll do it that way. I'm James Colgate. I think Timothy Sudweeks from FX Collaborative, he had an emergency, right? I don't see his name. Edwin Tang, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone.
Okay, so we'll add Edwin Tang to the list of people being sworn in. Is Fran Huang there?
No.
Okay, so we don't have Fran, but she should be. From Rube Associates, is Mark Emeldorf here? Or is Valerie?
I'm here.
Okay, Mark will be being sworn in. That's fantastic.
I'm also here, James.
Oh, and also Valerie, great. That's fantastic. You can see her name there. And I think Clyde, are you there? Or Isabella? Clyde is there. That's fantastic. And I'm not sure if Lin Zhu is here from ownership. It doesn't look like he is. So that's our group.
Yes.
And
Someone named Banjo Zhao or Muquis Chowdhury part of your group?
They're not, unless the name they're using from their Zoom account is not the same one that that is their name. I don't think they are.
Okay.
So Lin Zhao is there. Can you unmute?
No. What? No. I don't. Oh, Lin Zhao. Yeah, we do have Lin Zhao.
Oh, yes, you do have Lin Zhao. Oh, I'm sorry. My screen isn't big enough.
Okay, and then Joyce Choi. Joyce Choi, is that?
Not from us.
Okay. All right, so you want to raise your right hands, please?
And Ms. Zhao, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, like my computer, I work at home, my computer doesn't have camera, so.
Okay, as long as we can hear you.
You need to hear us. Okay.
Okay, so raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes.
I do. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Proceed, Mr. Colgate.
Okay, thank you, to the board and to the chair for hearing our application. We listened with great interest to everything that you said during the executive session. And I think the most efficient way would be for us to go through this. My name is James Colgate. I'm land use counsel at Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner for the applicant here. And as you know, we have a wide range of professionals and consultants with us, including our environmental consultant. Unfortunately, FX Collaborative, our design architect, he had a family emergency and had to leave. Edwin Tang represents Tang Studio. Tang Studio is a consulting architect. HP Engineering is the design engineer of record. That's Fran. From Rue Engineering, Rue Associates, we have our environmental consultants to talk about the few issues about the wrap and the vapor barrier and the pressure sub-slab depressurization system. Clyde Pittman from FA&A, the aeronautical consultants. And if necessary, if there's some ownership questions, we have Lin Zhu here. Okay, so I think the best thing to do would be to go through your questions rather than do a whole presentation. The time is late. It's already almost 5 o'clock. And the first issue, and I don't want to make this more complicated, and I don't want to make it difficult for the other applicant that just presented, but it's a fundamental issue about what is mean sea level and how people record and register it, and really how that interacts with the zoning resolution and the FAA approvals. I do think that, with all due respect, this idea about what mean sea level is a very relative term. When you look at the NOAA website, which we did, and you see at Willets Point, it tells you where mean sea level is. There's a high tide and a low tide, and there's a season, and that sea level, mean level, is not the same in Jamaica Bay as is Willow Point. So that makes perfect sense. It's a different part of the city. You have bathymetry, you have coastal coastlines, and all kinds of things that regulate that. And so it really depends where you are. And back a couple of centuries ago, everyone measured building heights and street heights from different places with different benchmarks. In Queens alone, there were a couple of hundred benchmarks on the sides of docks, on cornerstones of buildings, and people use that to measure where things are in our world. And in 1914, they made 5 of them, 1 for each borough. And then in 1929, we came up with, well, the federal government came up with NGVD, which was the average mean sea level at Sandy Hook, New Jersey. But again, everyone was measuring sea level, whether it was on the side of the Brooklyn Bridge or a cornerstone of a building, or everyone was measuring sea level, and it was all very relative. And the history of this last couple hundred years was to get us to a place where we can all measure in a uniform way, so that when the FAA, for instance, says that the maximum height is 299 feet in NAVD 88, we're talking about above sea level, but to a point which is not going to be the same 0 that you have in Willets Point. It's not going to be the same 0 that you have in Jamaica Bay. It's not going to be the same 0 that you have on Montauk. Every sea level is different, but the NAVD 88 coordinate system, this vertical datum system, gives us a way to relatively measure the heights of things, taking into account the shape of the Earth, which is oblate. It's not a sphere. So there are arcs to the Earth's crust which affect how one transposes these numbers from the northern part of Queens to the southern part of Queens, right? So that's really what we're talking about. And this idea, when someone says above mean sea level, we could get an engineer to determine where the mean sea level is in our building. I'm sorry, where our building is in relation to mean sea level closest to us at Willets Point or someplace like that. But that's not relevant to anything that's important for the Department of Buildings or for the Federal Aviation Administration or for the zoning resolution. What's important to the Department of Buildings and to you by extension, and also to the FAA, is the relative heights of where that light bulb and parapet is on the top of our building and where that place starts at the ground. And you need to be able to measure that in a uniform way. And so our survey that we submitted with our drawings is a survey prepared by a licensed surveyor. it indicates quite clearly that the datum used to determine the 55-foot height of curb in front of our building is measured from 0.0 NAVD. That is the starting point for our building. Our architect designed the building with that starting point that the surveyor gave us and said, this is 55 feet, and designed a building that goes up to the NAVD to the top of that very, very light bulb. I think it's 298 feet. So that is the architect relying on the surveyor to provide a building starting at 55 above 0.00 NAVD, which is above mean sea level, but in a mythical place because that NAVD is used throughout the country. And that 0.0 measurement is the benchmark that everything since 2008, when the 2008 building code came along, that's where that is what the city's datum is, and that's where we measure everything relative to. So with that understanding, the study that was submitted by our aeronautical experts to the FAA proposed a specific building, which wasn't the final building, that was the proposal. Then you get the no hazard determinations back, and there are 5 points, point number 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, there are 5 points, and they're on our plans that say, at this level, you can't go any higher than this point, otherwise it might be a hazard. If you're below that point, that's a determination of no hazard. So we have these 5 points established above 0.0 NAVD that says, and those 5 points are given to us by the FAA and approved by the Port Authority, below which we can construct our building, and that's what we did. So on our plans, you will see NAVD AMSL because we're measuring to the mean sea level of 0.0 in the NAVD coordinate, not where sea level is on an average basis based on scientific modeling and measurements at Willets Point or in Jamaica Bay or New York Harbor. That I'm hoping illuminates you a little bit about how this works, because the reality here is for an application to the BSA, you ought to be able to just demonstrate what the Federal Aviation Administration determines is the NAVD measurement maximum for the no hazard, compare that to the surveyor's plotting out of what our ground is, determine if the building that is plotted on top of that survey as constructed by our architect falls below the FAA hazard levels. That's really what this is about. The complication with NGVD is because between 1929 and 1988, NGVD was the datum that was used. And when the 1961 zoning resolution was enacted, there was no NAVD 88. So when it tells you that the runway 31 of the LaGuardia Airport is at it has a height of 5 feet elevation, that was an NGV 29. And then measuring out 200 feet and going up at 1 to 40 and then 1 to 50, you have these approach surfaces. They're all measured in reference to a runway elevation that's spelled out in NGVT. So there was a conversion that had to have been done to get from one to the other, but that purpose is only to determine the point at which the two planes, in our case, are, if you look at our plans closely, you'll see that there is an inner approach surface and an outer approach surface. One's at 1 to 40, one's at 1 to 50. They're at different slopes, and that point of intersection is right in the middle of our building at a 45-degree angle. So it made the math very interesting. But the conversion between NGVD and NAVD was only relevant really for the purpose of establishing where that zoning plane hits our building. And we were very careful to calculate that and put that in so that the drawings that you show in the BSA set that are number 3, A and B, and then 4, 5, 6, that series of drawings in your set all show the plane of New York City's approach surfaces, and the upper red line, not the blue and the purple line, but the red line at the top is what is the highest point that the FAA will permit us to do. When you look at the site plans, you'll see it in more detail than the sections and the elevations, but that's really how I understand this. And all this idea about surveyors giving notes about where sea level is really not the relevant question in my mind, and I don't want to, you spent a lot of time on this in the other applicant. I don't want to make things more complicated, but that's how I see it.
Okay, I know how you see it, but all I know is that we get a report from the FAA, the actual FAA, and it's all in AMSL, above mean sea level. And there's another number that they sometimes provide. I don't know if they give it every time, above ground level, which is actually ground level at the airport, not your ground level, right? Ground.
No, I don't. I think I'm going to ask Clyde to fit in to talk here. But what I will tell you, and I think Clyde will agree after I say it, is that when it gives us a height of 299 feet in point number 3 or 4, whatever that point number was on our plan, that is measured above 0.00 in the system of coordinates known as NAVD. That's what it's.
No.
Right?
No. I'm just looking at page, and it's great to see Mr. Pittman here because he always explains everything so clearly.
Great.
So the report that we have from the aeronautical study, that's the FAA report dated January 13th, 2020 for building point 1, says that building point 1, it's looking at 243 feet above ground level and 296 feet above mean sea level. Nothing. So mean sea level is some factor. So I was studying actually sea levels globally, and there is a global mean sea level if you're using that.
We don't use that.
The mean sea level at Willets Point, or the Triborough Bridge, or wherever it is that you're looking at. I don't know what mean sea level they're using when the FAA is doing that analysis. So actually, why don't we ask Mr. Pittman to respond to that, since that's his gig.
Right.
Okay, thank you. When you're looking at the aeronautical study, and the case that you referenced was 2019 AEA 12168, that was a compilation of all the points that were submitted. And the site elevation is the site elevation at the location of the study point. So when it says 53 feet site elevation, that is above mean sea level at that point. The 243 feet above ground level is the height that is allowed to be constructed according to the document above that 53 feet. It's not the 53 feet above the airport, it's the 53 feet at the actual location, for a grand total for point 1 of 296.
Okay.
Right, but my question to you, Clyde, what's 0.0? What is that? Where do you get 0.0? What does that relate to?
That 0.0 is the sea level.
No, but so that's what I want to know. Are we talking about mean sea level at the nearest station, which I think is Willets Point in this case? I'm not sure. Or are we talking about global mean sea level? Or what are we talking about? What does the FAA use how does it decide what's mean sea level?
It would be the sea level, the mean sea level location is different all over the planet. So if you were in Wales, the 50 feet above or 53 feet above sea level in Wales would be different than 53 feet above sea level here or in Pago Pago. It doesn't matter. They're just different. And so the reference point that I assume that the surveyor used was the sea level at recorded value at Willis Point.
Okay, so if we're using, if the FAA is relying on
the surveyor
using the mean sea level at Willets Point, then if we're but the buildings department doesn't use sea level. The FAA uses sea level.
Correct.
The buildings department uses NAVD 88 since several years ago, right? So it means that we need, that's why James, Mr. Colgate, I always focus on this because I've seen so many mistakes with these applications where often, or when we see the mistakes, finally the architect admits that it's a mistake and all the drawings are changed. Now, whether there was a mistake in the last set, I don't know, But we have had experiences where all the numbers changed because they realized, uh-oh, wrong, right? And it was because the conversion that's being used was inaccurate. That's why I'm always like, the surveyor is the one who knows this stuff, decides this stuff, and does the conversion. So that's why it's like, okay, Willets Point has a conversion of NAVD 88 to mean sea level, which you can find on NOAA's website. And I don't like architects to take responsibility for it because it's really not their specialty. That's why I always ask, you have a survey, the survey's already done. The survey was done in NAVD 88 as it should have been. And we just need the surveyor to give instruction to the architect what is mean sea level on these drawings.
Okay.
That's all.
The,
So
the, the surveyor, excuse me, the surveyor, the survey that we were provided identified it in terms of NADV 88.
yes, they should, right?
Right.
But because the FAA report says your building cannot be higher than at point 1, 296 feet above mean sea level. Let's just say, to make it really absurd, mean sea level and NADV 88 have a difference of 4 feet. That would be very significant, right? And
yes.
It's a tiny amount, but let's just say it was 4 feet. Wouldn't you want to know exactly what the difference is so that the architect can be sure that they're not building a building that's 4 feet taller than what the FAA approved?
Well, the architect would want to know that, absolutely. The values that we get from the surveyor, we would like to assume that they're correct because that's what we base all our analysis on.
Right, but the surveyor is basing it on NAVD 88. So the surveyor went to the curbs and measured top of curb and all that stuff. And then the architect took that survey and said, okay, I'm designing a building. I want my building to be this tall in NAVD 88. And then the FAA looks at it and somehow or other, that's the part I don't really get, how they decide 296 feet above mean sea level is the way that they're going to be looking at it, right? We need to make sure the conversion was right. Otherwise, oops.
This number, 296 feet, in this particular case, is based on the elevation of the runway 31. That's what that number is based upon. The overall AMSL of 296 feet is based upon the elevation of the runway, and it got that from taking a point that's 200 feet off the end of the runway and using it at the same elevation as the runway and going up at a ratio of 34:1 from that point will arrive at 296 feet, and hence you go back down, and that's how you get the AGL height.
I see. Okay.
Going backwards.
Okay.
Right. I get that. Can I interject something? Because I want Clyde, I want to focus this because it might get us to the answer quickly so we can move on, and if we have to revise, we'll revise. But Clyde, it measures from the runway, which in the CFR talks about I think it's 7 feet above sea level, right? That's what it uses, 7 feet.
I thought it was 8 point something.
Oh, okay, it's 8.7, but there is a number that you could look up, and that's how you calculated the 31 to 34. I get that, or they calculated. Is that measurement above sea level at Willets Point, or is that sea level at NAVD 88 0.0? What is that starting point? Because
the best of my knowledge, I think it's NAVD 88. I don't know that it is based upon Willets Point. That part is not clear.
Okay, so there's homework for us.
It's based upon the engineering firm that does the airport layout plans for LaGuardia.
Okay, so we can't answer this now, so I don't want to waste more time. What we have to do is, I understand you perfectly, Chair Perlmutter. What we have to do is we have to determine from the FAA, when they say above mean sea level, what does that mean? Where is that measurement to? Is it to 0.0 NAVD, or is it to Willets Point, or is it to some other measurement? And once we know that, it's a simple math, right? It's one or the other. That's what it is.
Wonderful.
So we'll do that. It's not a very complex task. I think Clyde will help me. Our surveyor may help me because height above sea level is measured to a certain datum of something.
Yes.
What is that? I thought I knew, and that's what I explained. I might be wrong. We'll find out. Okay.
Excellent. That would be wonderful. Then we could use that for further applications. You would be doing us a great service. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So
I'm sorry, Commissioner Sheta has his hand up.
And you don't want to show two things with a slash in between, like the way you're showing it right now. You're saying AMSL/NGVD. If they are the same, just cite one of them. You don't have to cite the two.
No, we can't do that because Buildings Department looks at NAVD 88. They use a whole different system, and FAA uses above mean sea level. So both values have to be on the drawings. And if they're the same, then each agency has to know that the value they're looking for is on the drawings. That's why we see both.
I think we have to put both.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I'm right that they are the same, but it sounds from prior experience that you found that they're not. So we'll find out.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay.
Sure. Okay. So your second point, Chair Perlmutter, was about, I think it was about a ZD1 that was filed with the Buildings Department. Is that correct?
Yeah, sorry, I did.
So I'll tell you what I think the question was, and by the time you find it, you can tell me if I'm right. But I think you understood that when you look at the ZD1, it tells you a certain height measurement about where the as-of-right height would have been, and that's not consistent with our drawings, our submissions and our plans that were submitted. And with that, we agree 100%. We think that was submitted to the Buildings Department was just to get a permit in place so that they can do their financing, whatever it is, to know that they can build a building. And that limit of 146 feet was a conservative number that would satisfy the Buildings Department that we were far below the number and therefore didn't have an issue. The BSA application is much more fine-tuned because we have to be precise and exact. Is that clear?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. You had another question about a building height study, and I wasn't sure if your comment was about the building height study from Urban Cartographics or the building height study that FA&A consultants submitted to the FAA.
No, I think it was Urban Cartographics.
Okay, so in that case, there is a asterisk on the study that tells you where they did it. They used a uniform methodology. Urban Cartographics looked and they used Department of Finance data to figure out what these heights are. They determined that's equivalent to the zoning height, which excludes the bulkheads, right? Okay. So that's what it is. And that's what we assumed also when we looked at this, so that you can compare as you're assessing this for the general finding if you go there, although even based on the larger building, it may not be the case. But if you want to assess that for that, you'll see that there are many other buildings in the same general area when you look at their height exclusive of their bulkheads that are our height and higher. And that was the purpose of it. So I would respectfully request that we not have to edit or change that document, but if you want us to, we will.
No, there wasn't anything. I just was looking for clarity. Thank you.
Okay. So let me go through this. You had another point about the penetrations in the FAA approach surfaces and the FAA horizontal surfaces, and why it's okay to penetrate those. And also, the second follow-up question, because this is all going to be for Clyde, was once they start putting a building here, another building, at what point does this sea of buildings change the landscape of how the FAA looks at things for your own edification? That's what I understood the questions for. And if that's it, then I'll let Clyde do his talking.
And it was also, is there a point at which it poses a hazard to flight? You know, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. There is a point, but before I get to that point, the building was built up to a 34:1 based upon, as I talked about earlier, based upon the elevation of the runway 31, which is their number is 6.7 feet AMSL. And that's why they stayed just under that 34:1 surface, which is why the FAA didn't push this very far. Mm-hmm. There reaches a point where you can build all the way across the approach where you wouldn't be penetrating the 34:1, but there is a point where you penetrate the one engine inoperative surface, which comes right out of the in the center of the on the center line of that approach surface, and I think it's 200 or 300 feet wide, either side of center line. The FAA doesn't protect for that 62.5 to 1 surface that starts at the runway, end of the runway. They do identify that surface, and it's the New York Port Authority that would object to it at that point if they cross that line into the engine out area, the one engine inoperative. So if that remains clear below, objects are below the 62.5 feet surface that goes out through there. And the number of projects that I've worked on over the last 10 or 15 years or so, they've all remained clear of that surface, that 62.5 one engine inoperative. And that's why we haven't seen any of those. So that is the area that's designated for an aircraft that's in trouble, that it can now rise at a slower rate, gain altitude, and then attempt to circle back around to get enough altitude to come back and land back at the airport. So that's what's protected. Now, each aircraft, the type of aircraft, whether it's a 737 or a 767, they all have different procedures that they have to follow in order to plan an escape out of the when they've lost an engine to that surface. So that's as long as you're building across there, and you do have buildings that do penetrate the 34 to 1, but they don't really penetrate the 34 to 1 or any of the surfaces inside that engine out area that goes across there. So as long as that stays clear, then you can continue to build across the approach surface and staying at the 34 to 1 would be ideal.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. Someday you'll do a little video for us of that, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So this building, actually, it could have been built if it penetrated the 34 to 1 like there are, it could have actually gone up to 380 feet AMSL.
Mhm.
But they chose not to do that under our recommendation to keep it below the 34 to 1.
And why would you recommend the 34 to 1 as opposed to the penetration?
Well, I feel like the 34 to 1 is there for a purpose, and that purpose is in the future. If we keep things down at 34 to 1, then that would allow the airport to add perhaps different procedures that would that as they get a little more narrower, and then and to clean up the areas such as like a required navigational performance, the RMP approaches. If we end up putting in those, they're much more narrower, and that would eliminate the penetrations to the 34 to 1, and it would allow lower minimums.
Okay.
So we're protecting the airport for future development.
In other words, protecting it in case they want to add more terminals or something like
No,
that?
no, not more terminals. The procedure itself for an RMP type, it has different numbers associated with it that makes it wider or narrower. You could go down to a 0.11, which means it would be very, very narrow. It would be they're 2 RMP wide. So an RMP of say, let's just say 0.1, then it means that it would be either side of center line. It would be 0.2 of a mile either side of center line, and therefore I've got a narrower procedure, which means it's more or less an automated type of procedure for landing. But I don't have the penetrations in that center line area as is to protect the procedure.
So when you say future development, you mean more flights?
No, I mean more instrument procedures that would allow the aircraft to fly a tighter tolerance on the landing, and so you could then keep your minimums lower because you don't have the penetrations within the tighter tolerance area, as opposed to an ILS or an LPV, which is lateral performance with vertical guidance, right? So as the approaches are actually wider and that take up more of an area and I have more of a penetration there, and if I get to a narrower procedure where I have more automation in the design of the procedure and automation into protection of the aircraft, it's just narrower. I don't have the penetrations. I can have lower landing minimums.
Okay, I see. And what's the advantage of having a lower landing minimum?
During bad weather, I can land more aircraft.
Ah. Interesting. Hmm. So for buildings that do penetrate the 30, is everywhere 34:1 or it's only with respect to this runway?
No. The 34:1 is basically the golden rule to where once I penetrate the 34:1, then I'm affecting visibility minimums.
Mm-hmm.
So that's visibility minimums would be the height and both the ceiling and visibility, which would be longitudinal.
Mm-hmm.
How far I can see before I pick up the runway. It's in order to land, if I'm flying it myself, I have to be able to see the lights or the runway.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be able to stay, get down below whatever the cloud height is.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So for buildings that penetrate the 34:1, that's the end of the opportunity to have that lower landing minimum.
If they're in the smaller wedge, if they penetrate this, like let's just go back to the 50:1, which is in the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Penetrations to the 50:1 won't affect minimums, but you've got buildings that are out there, such as the waste transfer facility, that penetrates the 50:1, which doesn't affect minimums, but it would, under the present guidance, it would affect a Cat 2 approach to that runway.
Mm-hmm.
And Cat 2 is lower minimums. So the idea is, okay, I can let that go because I can't achieve that anymore because I've already got all these other penetrations to that approach to the runway. I have to give up something. So I'm not going to get a Cat 2 on runway 31, Cat 2 ILS. But as procedures are developed, I may be able to get, we don't have an RNP on that runway, do we? No. So I would, I could then put in an RMP that would be very tight. And so the aircraft would then be able to land in lower minimums because I've now moved the penetrations of the 34:1 out of a narrow corridor, which is plus or minus 0.2 of a mile, let's say, of the runway center line.
Mm-hmm. So is there a kind of like a chart where you can see where 34:1 needs to be maintained versus where 50:1 is adequate to maintain?
Well, there is no chart. It would just be the calculus of the approach that you would then do that. You would do the calculations to see if something penetrates the 34:1.
Okay. So you said there's this narrow wedge. Is that something that's on your plate?
Well, the narrow wedge would be for a procedure that hasn't been designed yet.
Oh, okay.
So that's the reason I recommended the 34:1. By staying below that, they eliminate the possibility of future impacts to that runway, and we want to preserve aviation, so we look out for that.
Okay, and that's something the FAA, when it's doing its analysis, would take into account, or that's you as an engineer taking into account as a outside consultant?
As the latter.
Okay.
Because the FAA doesn't have anything in the queue for a RMP that would dictate that as a future development for that runway, because they have the penetrations. But if something were they decide that they want to extend the procedure to that runway, you want to be able to have options.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Otherwise, the minimums are exceedingly high, and you want to get lower minimums so that it all works. And I believe you have an offset localizer, an ILS, on that runway 31, because you don't have enough room at the 13 end to put in the localizer at the 13 end. That's where the localizer goes normally for an approach to a runway 31. So that localizer is about midway down the runway, and so it's at an angle because you can't get a straight in approach, and that's part of it. But if you're doing satellite-based navigation, then you don't need the localizer, and you could do an RMP into that airport. I think you have an RMP into 22. Do we have it? Is that what they have? They have an RMP into 22? And they have one into 4. Right. So you're just, the LaGuardia is kind of waterlocked, you know, landlocked, because it has that, all that water that's around it. You don't have any room. If you ended up putting in a localizer for that was straight in for a runway 31 and for 13, they would, let's take the runway for 13, it would be sitting out there off the end of the runway into the channel. And you couldn't control it because you'd have ships going through the channel that would pass in front of the localizer, which would then disrupt the signal. Same thing on the other end. It would be like 2,000 feet off the end of the runway in the bay.
Yeah, okay. Get it. All right, that's so interesting. Thank you very much. Appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this for Mr. Pittman? No? Okay, please continue, James.
Sure. Okay. So what I'll do next, and that was really enlightening. I feel I know a lot more about aeronautical engineering than I ever did before. Okay. So there was a question about where the zoning district boundary is, and I'll see if I can share my screen because I thought it was clear in the drawings. Let me see if this works. Share screen, and put this away and pull up the, hold on, this. So we included in our submission what we called in our statement of facts the site, which is the construction site. Okay. We indicated that lot 1 is included in the zoning lot, and when we did our plans and submitted them, we have rendered the entire zoning lot as a single zoning lot, and that's how we presented it. I think it's kind of clear when you put together a statement of, let me make that bigger for you. I can do that. Let's see if I make my virtual desktop bigger, and then if I make this bigger, and then I can zoom in as much as you need to. This is how we presented the site plan, and this is how we presented the tax map. And we said in our statement of findings that this lot 3 is the site, we cite in quotes, that's the building site. Lot 1 is included in the zoning lot. And then we included in the plans this drawing and another one, just a couple of drawings like this, that render quite clearly what's included in the zoning lot and shows where all the different lines are that dictate. This particular drawing shows the lines that are the approach surface of the New York City zoning resolution, and where the point of inflection, actually it's not an inflection point, where the place where they intersect becomes the outer section at 1 to 50. And then the other drawing after that shows the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points in the FAA no hazard determinations and how our building stays below it. But in both cases, we show the zoning lot like that. Could it be clearer? I don't.
I think the question was the zoning district boundary. Commissioner Shanda, you had that question.
Oh, that question too. I was going to do hers in turn. We have the line right here. It's shown.
Oh, it's so faint. That's why.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it could have been stronger. If you zoom in, you can see it there. If you need us to resubmit the drawing with a thicker line, we can do that.
Please put a thicker line weight and identify that line because it's really conceptual there.
Right.
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
If I would add, if you just extend that and put the zoning districts on 2 sides of the line, and that would also make it very
So we'll
clear.
label it as to what's the R6 on one side, C12, R6 on the other.
Right.
Understood.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so that I can pull up my notes because my notes are jumbled and you don't need to see them that way. Okay.
Just to go back, Mr. Colgate, to the tax lot that you showed and how the building lays out. I mean, the reason I asked that question, I did see the tax lot, and the tax lot, it has many, it's not a uniform rectangle. It has a lot of irregular ins and outs. So what I was really trying to understand is what is the site that we are at the end that we're tying this building to? And are we tying it to the zoning lot, or are we tying it to the specific tax lot? And if we are tying it to the specific tax lot, then to me, it was not clear where the exact boundary of that tax lot is in relation to this site plan. That's really where my question was. I see that, but I'm not able to translate that when I'm seeing this building, because when I look at the building footprint, it seems to be going beyond what this tax lot is.
Okay, so I have a perfect solution that I hope you will be happy with. Let me make this big again. I have to do this again. And then I need to do there. Okay, it's jumping a little bit, but it should get big in a second if I do this. So on this site plan, we can make this a thicker line. We can indicate the zoning districts as they are, and then we can lay on top of this where that jig jogging thing is and say tax lot line, lot 1, lot 3, just for clarity, so you have an understanding of where that is. I can explain why it ended up like that. It was very complicated, but that'll make you happy, right? And I think it's a better result.
Yes, I understand why you didn't want to put in. There are a lot of lines.
It's a lot of information here. We wanted you to focus on for us, we thought the important thing for you was where are those heights and what are those numbers and what are these elevations and how does it relate to the different study points. And for us, that was, we thought, was the most important. And we thought the other information was really going to cloud the drawing and make it more harder for you to understand, but we can put that on. That's easy.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So you're very welcome. Okay, so let's then do this again, and I'm going to close this. And I'm sorry, I just need to get back to where I was, which was my drawing. Hold on a second. Oh, look at that. I just did something very strange with my own thing here. I'm going to now open up my notes, which are here. And I'm sorry for this delay. Okay, so that was about the zoning district boundary line. There was a question about the Port Authority letter. I think you found them. They're in your folder. They were submitted to you and to the community board. So we'll go on from that unless there's a question about the Port Authority letter. And now I think I've finished all of the chair's questions. Chair Perlmutter, I think I hit all your points so far. I'm going on to my notes to what are Shampa's questions.
No. So I asked about where's the required parking for the combined lot?
Yes, that is in my light. So the existing 2-story building that's on the site, and you can see the 2-story building in the photographs of the site context and all that. That building is constructed pre-61, but it had an enlargement. It had an enlargement that requires 11 parking spaces. Those 11 parking spaces are waived until such time as the zoning lot requires more than 15 spaces, which will happen when we're finished with our building, right? So what that means is that our development is required to account for 11 commercial parking spaces in our building on the commercial side of the zoning lot, which we've provided in order to get that's what we're going to have to anyway to satisfy the zoning resolution and the buildings department. And if you read in the statement of facts, you'll see that there are 11 required spaces for that enlargement, and there are another 4 commercial parking spaces required because we had to increase some of that commercial bulk because of, even though we're not really using it, but the enclosure of that space and the construction that we do ends up adding some more commercial floor area, which is not really useful, but it does increase parking. And that will all be on our site, which is tax lot of our development site on the same zoning lot in the commercial portion. Does that make sense?
Yes, so it's going to be in the building, underneath, in the cellar or something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So let me, you had, there were more questions here I didn't answer. I'm very sorry, Chair Perlmutter. You asked about the vacate orders too, right?
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
okay. So the building next door has a vacate order and a partial vacate order from 2009 and 2010. There was a restaurant to which that is attached that my understanding is doesn't really exist there, but that building has those old violations sitting there, and it has lots of violations. We don't own that property, but we're on the same zoning lot with them, so we understand your issues and the community board's issues with them. We did note that in the last 6 months, they have cleared 12 of those violations. They've also filed an alteration type 1 application to conform what they have conform the drawings and records with the department with what they have, which was out of our control. The good news is that because we're building our building, it's going to pull them along and force them to come into compliance because the department's going to require that at the end of the day anyway. The building department is not going to let us get to the end without their solving a lot of their issues, because we're now linked in a way that we weren't, there was no impetus for them to clean things up, I think, until we came along and bought part of their building, because it's going to be necessary for our construction. But all of those are really, if you ask me, and respectfully to the community board's feeling that the Board of Standards of Appeal should make them clean up their building. That's really the buildings department's role. And I would look at your function here is to determine and opine as to whether or not the standards in the special permit application or the zoning resolution are satisfied, and let the buildings department resolve the intricacies of whatever procedures they have between the two building owners to satisfy the violations and the penalties and the fines. I mean, that's all going to have to be cleaned up anyway, but that's really a DOB function in my world, how I see it.
Yeah. So, and I understand you probably have a zoning lot development agreement that requires the seller of the air rights to clean up their act if required by the buildings department.
We absolutely have that in place, and for good reason. You know what those are there for. So all that's going to be resolved by Zelda. It's going to be resolved by the buildings department, and we would only ask that the Board of Standards of Appeals not be a third thing that kind of interjects itself into that, because then closing the loop to fix things then requires just a lot more bureaucracy, when at the end of the day, it's not really the function of the BSA.
I'm going to stop you there. We're not asking you to do it. I was just trying to get clarity because it was quite confusing what community board said and the explanation, to the extent there was one in your papers. So I just thought it'd be easier if you just explain it to us here. Okay.
And do you have an adequate explanation, or do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, that's fine. That's good.
Okay. All right. Zoning district bound, we talked about. Port Authority letters, we talked about. And now I get to Commissioner Shanda's questions. So there was a parking lot variance at that time. It was a pre-61 variance, but it was still a residential zone. So they needed a BSA variance to have commercial uses in the resident side of the zoning lot. That is being abandoned and getting rid of. I think you didn't have a question about that, but you made a comment about that. And I think everyone is happy that variance is going away, because the prior owner was not, I guess, doing what they were supposed to do. And now we'll clean that up, certainly. The other question she had, Commissioner Shanda, was about the zoning lot and the tax lot. I think we talked about that already earlier. Okay. Those questions we've talked about, the dashed lines. Okay.
Statement of facts and drawing floor area and consistency.
Okay. So let me see. I'm not so sure they're inconsistent. Can you elaborate? Because we think that you might be talking about the added floor area versus the total floor area.
That's the part, it's not very clear to me. So when I'm just looking at the BSA zoning chart, when you add up the total residential, community facility and commercial floor area, it totals to 186,358 square feet. But in the BSA statement of fact, page 3, it's the third paragraph. It says the project will consist of 151,045 square feet, 2 buildings, mixed development, and it lays out all the floor areas. And when I add all that, and that comes up to 151,045 square feet.
I see.
Which is what the project says. So somewhere, what is consistent is the residential floor area. I think what is consistent is also the community facility floor area. What is not consistent is the commercial floor area. Based on the zoning chart, the commercial floor area is 36,386, whereas based on the statement of fact, it's only 1,073 square feet.
That's easily understood.
And I think that's because you're counting the commercial building that's in lot 1. And that's why I went to ask the question is, why are you basing it on just lot 3? Why not do it on the entire zoning lot? And that way you don't have to distinguish between where your building footprint is based on tax lot or anything. It's only the tax lot that you have.
I understand that, and you are 100% correct that the difference that you see, the 1,000 square feet that we're adding is just to account for some egress passages and some spaces that are in our new development on our tax lot that are going to be classified as commercial because they are in conjunction with that building next door in order to give them an egress easement. And when you look at the BSA zoning analysis, the reason it's so much bigger is because there's a lot of commercial floor area already on the entire zoning lot. So when we did the statement of facts, we were trying to focus on what we were building, and that's what we call our site, and that's what we call our project in defined terms. I mean, lawyers like to put these things in quotes and then be consistent with the use of that term. This chart clearly shows the larger number, which is the existing floor area on the site. I don't think there's any inconsistency there. If you think it's unclear, we can take a look and try to reword that. Unless you're happy with the explanation, that's why there's a difference.
I think what I'm actually looking for in the statement of fact, do you define the zoning lot? If you do define the zoning lot, yeah, okay, site and the lot 1 consist of one zoning lot. Okay.
It's a lawyer thing where you put things in quotes and then you have to be consistent with that thing that's in quotes. And if you call one thing a project, one thing a zoning lot, one thing a,
No, Mr. I think, when we review these things, we review so many things. Sometimes we also get confused as to what we have, what we saw and what we didn't see.
Of course.
So, okay, all right. The project itself would consist of that. The total zoning floor area will be 186. I get that. Okay, fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay, good.
Okay, good. Thank you.
It's always confusing, and you see so many of them, and no one has a standard way of writing. I learned how to write in a particular high school in a particular part of the country, and everyone learns a different place. So, if the next applicant went to school in Texas, they're going to have a different way of writing, and I'm sorry it gets complicated.
Okay.
Okay. All righty. So I think we did that. And the other comment was about the Port Authority letter, and I think we found those. And then Dara had no, Commissioner Otley Brown had no comments. Commissioner Sheta had some comments. And we have the.
No, let me interrupt you right there.
What I miss?
He wasn't commenting about your project. He was pointing out to the commissioners in general that subslab depressurization systems and vapor barriers are commonly found in other buildings, and yours is proof that they are. And those are buildings that are not requesting variances, because we often see variance applications where they claim one of the hardships and costs is this SSDS that they have to provide. And Commissioner Sheta always says, but everyone provides an SSDS or a vapor barrier.
Yep.
It's not a hardship. And so that was point in fact or case in point.
I see.
So no need for you to comment. That was directed at us.
Right. Okay. So and then Sheta didn't have, Commissioner Sheta did not have any other comments, and Commissioner Scabetta did not either. So I look at what my homework is to kind of bring this back. I owe you an explanation as to what above mean sea level, AMSL, means in the FAA determination. Does it mean from 0.0 NAVD sea level, or does it mean a local sea level? It's one or the other, and it's a scientific fact. It cannot be disputed. It's one or the other. It seems as though your other applicants went back with that same question and came back with the answer that it's local sea level. If it is, then
they actually never took it to the response that you did, which is interesting, because it never occurred to us that it would be other based on the airport itself. So anyway, so you're going to be doing a better investigation, which in the end will be useful to us going forward for other applicants.
Right.
However, so that the second part of it is, once you determine what that is, you want to still know what is the NAVD 88 of your building.
That's right.
Is the mean sea level that the FAA is using, so that at least you can show us that you're right on your drawings, that they're the same thing.
Right.
So we need something, either whatever. Normally I ask the surveyor to do it, and that may be what's necessary, but you're going to inform the surveyor with additional information about what the FAA actually uses for its above mean sea level number.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, Commissioner or Chair Perlmutter. I don't know that I'll be informing the surveyor. The surveyor did his job and determined the points around the building at a certain height in the NAVD coordinate system. The loose end here is the aeronautical determination by the FAA with the no hazard determinations. Those are the ones that are using a term AMSL, above mean sea level, without stating in the body of the determination letter what they're using as 0.0
yes,
mean sea level.
True.
And so that's really going to be an aeronautical thing. It's what the FAA measured to. I think I'll lean on Clyde. He's going to do a little bit of investigating and figure out what that 0 is. If that 0 is NAVD 0, then our drawings are perfectly fine, and we can just supplement that with some documents that satisfy you. And if it's wrong, well, then we're going to have to potentially change a foot or two off our building. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But I understand how important it is, because the building can't be in the wrong direction. The FAA would not like that.
No.
Okay.
In fact, I think that's the only issue.
I think, and the thicker lines labeling the drawings and stuff. So really, I think then that this application's in fairly good shape. It doesn't sound like, I mean, does it sound as though we need another hearing, or we can just submit?
No. So let's go to the public. There's one
Oh,
person
sure.
Sitting in the waiting room. So I think Banjo Zhao is sitting in the waiting room. If you would like to speak on this application, go ahead, announce the application, Tony or Kurt, please.
2020-35BZ. It's 136-18 Maple Avenue, Queens. If you'd like to comment, press *6, right?
You've already called in.
Oh, yeah, if you already called in, it's *6.
*6 to, no, sorry. If you've already called in, *9 to raise your hand to speak. And we do have Mr. Banjo Zhao, who's called in, and we've unmuted him, but he's muted himself. So to unmute yourself, either through Zoom or dial *6 to unmute yourself.
That's it. Sorry, I was confused.
Okay, Mr. or Ms. Banjo Zhao, please unmute yourself by dialing *6. And anybody else who would like to call to speak about this application, they dial the phone number 646-558-8656, password 992-8078-4517#. And once you're in and you'd like to speak on this application, you dial *9. I don't think we have Mr. Zhao anymore. Maybe still just hanging out from the last application. It's really not clear. So, okay, so Mr. Colgate, how much time do you need to make the submission?
I think that within a few days we'll get it together. I don't think this is a heavy lift. We're going to amend one plan. We're going to show some little additional information, and we're going to get some documentation sufficient to adjust, or not adjust, to demonstrate our understanding of the NAVD. There's a possibility it'll go longer if we determine that our assumption was wrong about the measurement point, and that if that affects our ability to comply with the FAA no hazard limitations, right? But I'm not expecting that. But if that's the case, it might be a little bit longer, but it shouldn't take us very long at all. I think we'll be done right away. I will say one thing, Chair Perlmutter, is that we did get comments from DEP. they did approve a work plan, and pursuant to that work plan, we did more investigations and have a RAP that's been submitted to them for their review. We expect them to approve it because it was done by top-notch engineers who know what they're doing, and the sub-slab depressurization system and vapor barrier we expect will be sufficient to deal with the dry cleaner from years ago. And that's going to hold out, and clearly you have to wait for that to come in. And I just want to remind you of that.
Okay, thank you. Tracy, any idea about the turnaround for that?
It was submitted on Friday, so it should be 30 days, hopefully.
Okay, so 30 days for DEP to review that submission, correct? Does that sound right?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
30 days to review that submission?
Yes.
Okay. And so, Mr. Colgate, of course, you're going to be reaching out to the FAA to get clarity. So maybe Mr. Pittman has a special hotline directly to the right person to ask the question of. But
I think he has a bat phone, yeah.
Yeah. So Mr. Pittman is a month or so, or I'm going to give it a little more time, like 6 weeks, to give you a little buffer. Is that enough time for you to respond and get that information?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so we'll let you know what the next hearing date is, but I don't have any problems because we're just clarifying. I think we can just clarify by closing and clarify that the heights are the right heights. And if
You usually close when you have environmental?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. We have open environmental. Sorry.
Also, I would just note that Joyce Choi is here apparently on behalf of City Council member Peter Koo. So Ms. Choi, if you would like to speak, please unmute yourself.
Madam Chair, this is Carlo.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, just to clarify with regards to closing and the.
No, we're not closing. We're not closing. We have open environmental.
Yeah, I'm sorry, isn't this a type 2 application? And we're not waiting for a declaration on this application.
No, we're not waiting for a declaration, but we do have the prerequisite to determine if there's hazardous materials impacts. So we would need that determination, not in a neg deck per se.
Okay, so let's not, jump things. We have environmental issues. Okay. We can always close it at the next and put it on for a decision at the following. It's not really that big of a thing. Okay. So, so Miss Choi.
Hi, we don't have anything to say from our office, but thanks for the chance.
Okay. You were just listening in other words.
Yeah, I was here since 2, so, I'll just hear the whole time.
Oh, well, thank you for participating in our hearings.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we will give you 6 weeks to submit. That will include hopefully cleaning up the whole environmental question and reaching out to FAA and clearing up the question about heights. Okay. And
that is fantastic. And Chair Perlmutter, if DEP does something unusual and turns us around quicker and we get our letter in a few days, is it possible to maybe move that up
No, because once we set the hearing date, which we're going to do in the next few days,
right,
it's fixed, so we don't move it. Okay. So unless you got those answers, by Thursday, we wouldn't move it.
I think the FAA is possible, but I do not think the DEP will move at their own pace.
It's not. So we actually have another number that just called in. Last 3 digits, 786. So we're going to allow the person to talk if that person can hear us and unmutes him or herself.
It appears they hung up.
They hung up. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I might have frightened. Okay.
That's scary.
Okay. All right, then. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your participation and all the people who called in and didn't speak. There are a bunch of names there that actually just because I want to make sure people aren't deprived of their opportunity. Timothy Sudweeks didn't speak. Is that one of your team?
He was one of our team. He had the family emergency. He came back after the emergency, but I don't think there was a question that he needed to answer. He was from FX Collaborative.
Okay, and Fran Huang?
There was no question she needed to answer. She's the engineer.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we didn't leave anybody out from the general public. Okay, thanks very much.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
This
Come in.
could-
Evening.
Thank you.
This concludes the public hearing for September 15, 2020, 2 p.m. session.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.